yeah.
Okay.
But that's a good point. Hey, Donald. Okay. Are we ready? Okay. We'll go ahead and get started. We're live now. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for November 17th, 2020. Per the General Assembly's approval of the Governor's amendments to the biennial budget, the governing body may now meet electronically without a quorum actually assembled in a single location and without the in-person governing body members voting on the participation of those who are remoting in. The following benchmarks for the meeting this evening have been met. First, the governor has declared a state of emergency for the current COVID-19 pandemic in accordance with Code of Virginia. Second, the declared emergency makes it impractical or potentially unsafe for the governing body to assemble in a single location, and guidance from state and federal government support this determination. Therefore, the governing body will be meeting with various members participating electronically through GoToMeeting. Third, the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the governing body. Fourth, the governing body will make available a recording or transcript of the meeting on its website in accordance with Code of Virginia. Fifth, notice has been and will continue to be provided to the public using available methods. Lastly, we have made and will continue to make arrangements for public access through electronic means, including the ability to comment. Those participating electronically are Councilmember Miriam Machado, Councilmember Hector Sendejas, Councilmember Hasib Javed, and Vice Mayor Preston Banks. Those participating in person are Councilmember Alana Mensing, Councilmember Donald Shoemaker, and Mayor Jeanette Rischel. We have before us an amended agenda. The item 4A, which is city holiday events, remains. Moving down to the bottom, 9G CA subordination atonement becomes 9G1, and the release becomes 9G2, and then moving on to 9H Community Development Patriot Contract Amendment. Are there any other edits that I have failed to mention? Okay. And per city attorney, there is no closed session this evening. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Question.
Yes, question.
I'm sorry, because I was trying to follow the messages today. On the regular agenda, it has the city holiday events.
Correct.
On the amended, it does not. Is that correct?
The 4A remains. That's why I said city holiday event 4A remains on the agenda.
So, but it is not on this printed amended agenda.
No, it's not, but
Okay, we're going to add it back in.
Yes,
Okay.
It is on the website agenda page.
yes, it is,
Okay, I'm just making sure.
And then the release was added, turning 9G into 9G1, and the other document is 9G2. They're both closely related, but two separate items.
9G1 is the release, and what did you say? 9G2 is?
9G2 is the release.
Okay. What's the one?
Atonement.
Okay. Is that all the changes?
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, abstained, motion carries. We have an agenda. Please join us for a moment of silence, and Councilmember Mensing, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is public comment time. Do we have anyone signed up to make public comment? Okay. No emails or phone calls? Okay, thank you, Lena. Seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move on to information, and that would be city holiday events, city manager.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body, and members of the public and staff. Tonight, we just briefly want to give an update on what we're doing for the holidays because of COVID-19. Just like we briefed our Halloween event, we want to discuss what we're going to be doing during the upcoming Christmas holiday. Right off the bat, you'll see in the Parks and Rec slide, the parade. There's just not a good way to make it a safe event. So we're not going to be able to do that event this year, but you will see that there's some other events that we're doing for the community to celebrate the holiday season. One second here. There we go. All right. So I'll brief real quick Public Works, and then at the end I'll also just remind everyone about where to find additional kind of CDC guidance. Public Works is pretty simple. They will be putting up decorations still this year, so that's not changed. So they plan on doing that on the light poles on November 30th, so the Monday right after Thanksgiving. So you will still see Christmas decorations this year, so that hasn't changed. And I'll actually be moving to Parks and Rec. There you go. Okay, yeah, so I'll now hand it off to Jay, who'll give a quick update on what Parks and Rec is doing.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. So the Department of Parks and Recreation will be providing 3 Christmas programs and events for the 2020 holiday season. The first will occur on the 4th, the tree lighting in Casella Park. This is similar to the traditional tree lighting that we've had in place the last couple of years, with the only kind of caveat this year is we will not be inviting the public, and it won't be a public event. We'll be lighting the tree at dusk on the 4th. We'll have Santa in place, as well as DPR staff. And then what we'll do is we're going to encourage patrons to take pictures with their families and friends in front of the tree, you know, kind of on their own time. Send us those pictures and tag us on social media, and then we're going to basically enter them into a raffle, and we will unveil Christmas video, video on Christmas morning of all the families that took a picture in front of the tree. So just trying to kind of put a little bit of virtual spin on that traditional event. Second event will be, or program I should say, will be Handmade for the Holidays. That will occur on the 10th of December. This is a craft and holiday centric event where basically families and participants will be creating and decorating holiday ornaments. We will make sure that we keep all of the participants, that once we hit 25, we'll make sure we go to a separate space, so we have 2 rooms to house everyone, so that we don't have any issues with maintaining the governor's order of 25. And we'll make sure everyone's wearing masks, there's social distancing in place, families only at each table. All of our staff will be wearing masks, and we'll make sure the tables are spaced at least 8 feet apart. This event is $7 per child. In the event that there is, we see a pretty dramatic rise in cases continue, we certainly will look at kind of altering this and modifying it to make it a little more safe, where we won't bring everyone together in the same space.
And just before you proceed, just to let the public know as well, if they haven't read the governor's executive order, the masks mandate has actually been changed a little bit. It used to be kids 10 and up were required to wear a mask. Now it's actually 5 and up. So just please be aware of those new restrictions.
And lastly, we have the Christmas break activity box program. This is on the 19th. So the idea behind this is staff are providing boxes of pre-made crafts and activities for participants. We will have everything ready to go on the 19th. Santa will be delivering these and passing these out to families as they arrive. It'll kind of be like a drive-through type style setup. And then the boxes will include a variety of toys and games, activities, even recipes that will encourage all of the children to complete. And then we will actually have our staff basically showing how to, going along with the recipes, with the crafts, making the different activities, so that, kind of our patrons can follow along at home. These are also $7 per child, and that's set to occur the week of Christmas. Any questions?
Is that the conclusion?
No, just from Jay's section.
Oh, from Jay's.
Yeah.
Are there any questions from the folks at home? Councilmember Machado?
No questions. Thank you so much for doing these activities, even during this pandemic. Thank you.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I'm just glad you guys can do some things. I know it's very, very difficult with the reinstatement of some of the restrictions again, so.
Thank you very much, Jay. We really appreciate all the efforts of Parks and Rec. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Chief Lugo, are you on?
Yes, sir, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Every year, the police department partners up with Battlefield Lodge 43, the Fraternal Order of Police, and participate in an annual event called Shop with a Cop. The Shop with a Cop event pairs up children with police officers who then take them to pick up Christmas presents. We normally do it at the Walmart on the west end of the county. This event is a great event. I actually participated in it last year. I believe strongly that it helps promote a positive law enforcement image with these children. And also that I think children need to experience officers caring people who are willing to provide a positive support. So this year, the Fraternal Order of Police reached out to us, notified us that they still wanted to have the event, although Prince William County decided not to move forward with it. They're still waiting on Manassas City to decide if they're going to do it. We just speak to the schools. They did identify at least 10 families that we can have this event with kids, so we're excited about it. So if Manassas City decides not to participate, the Fraternal Order of Police said that they would allow us to bring additional children. So I'll take any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Chief. That's wonderful. Any questions from Councilmember Machado?
No questions. Thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, but I want to say thank you for your service and helping kids in our community. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, no questions.
Vice Mayor Banks?
I just wanted to say that thank you for continuing this program. I know it's a lot of adjustments that we have to make because of this pandemic, but I'm glad that the kids, at least for Christmas, get to feel like it's something special. So thank you.
Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker? Okay, no questions. Thank you very much, Chief. That's a wonderful program.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Chief Silver.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the governing body. For the fire department for Christmas holiday stuff, we're going to do our annual Santa ride throughout the city. That's going to start at 9 a.m. on the second Saturday of December, which is the 12th. Our goal is to do like we have done for the last 25 years. We'll put Santa Claus on top of the fire engine and drive him throughout the city. We try to rotate every year from east side to west side where we start. This year we'll be starting on the west side of the city. One thing we do ask you to do is to bear with us on the west side of the city because there's a lot of tight streets. Getting the fire truck down some of these streets on the weekends when everybody's home is a little tough. So we're going to do our best to get down every street to the fullest. So like I said, we put Santa Claus on top of the fire truck, driving throughout the city. I know from historically, we had everybody come out to their porches or where they would view from the windows. We never have really big gatherings in the yard. We'd ask that you do not have big gatherings again this year. Please stay within your property. And there will be a link that's on the bottom of the screen there, that where you can follow Santa throughout the city to see where he's at, so that you're not just standing there all day waiting. And that's a pretty loud link. So that's the one event. And then today we did find out that we're going to be still partnering with the Marine Corps Marathon Toys for Tots drive. I talked to city manager today and approved that. So there will be 2 boxes in the city. One's going to be in the police department lobby, the other's in the fire department lobby. And we urge you to bring an unwrapped gift to the boxes. So that, that's it.
Any suggested gifts that you would want?
With an unwrapped toy or present, we're
Just-
good with that. We're not touching the presents and gifts.
Okay, okay.
We're told that personnel from Prince William County's fire department will come around and collect them. There should be no touching from our staff.
Okay.
Unless the boxes are get overfull, we will push the boxes out. Other than that, we should not have any contact with this.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much, Chief. That's great that you can continue to do this. Any questions from the folks at home? Councilmember Machado?
Thank you, Chief. Let's keep the Christmas spirit in Manassas Park. Also, when can we start dropping the toys, the unwrapped toys?
I do not know exactly when Prince William County is going to bring the box and drop them out. I would imagine it'll be this week or sometime early next week. We'll get a flyer together with Heath and we'll get something out to the entire city at once. But at this point in time, there's no date except when the boxes will show up.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I want to say thank you for doing this again every single year. For the link, do we need to register the day of the event or can we register it before?
That I don't know, but at least we handle the dates that. We talked to one
The app?
Yeah.
Yes, we'll work together.
Okay.
But is that going to be, do you have to like register before the event, or you'll just be able to download the app that moment? And
Be able to download the app.
Okay.
And I'll be able to get more information.
okay, so we'll give more information, but people should be able to download the app kind of the same day and be able to have it work.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions. Thanks.
Thanks. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Councilmember Shoemaker? Okay.
Thank you for doing it.
Thank you very much, Chief. Much appreciated.
Great, and thank you all to all the departments for doing this. And during Easter, the Parks and Rec did do something similar to this with the Easter Bunny, and it was very well received, very well appreciated by all the kids in the community. So thank you to all the departments for that. We will be providing a flyer in the next few days that will summarize all of these events. Thank you, Lauren and Keith, for getting that flyer together. But we'll be sending that out just as a reminder for all the different events and timelines for this year. But also we want to share, and that will also be on the flyer as well, just for the public to keep checking that website from the CDC, because they constantly update it with the guidance. So they had Halloween before, now they have Thanksgiving guidelines, and post-Thanksgiving they'll likely put Christmas and New Year's recommendations as well for everyone staying safe. And then everyone just needs to be aware that the numbers are getting worse in our region. They're starting to look a little bit more similar to how when it started peaking in the springtime as well. So everyone needs to really be more cognizant now, wearing the mask and washing hands and doing all the things that the CDC recommends. So that's all we have.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving on to recognitions. We have a very special recognition this evening, recognizing Department of Parks and Recreation employee Daniel Cody Starr for his outstanding service to the city. Whereas the governing body of the City of Manassas Park are extremely grateful for the great service provided to our community by all of our employees, and whereas the governing body desires to recognize outstanding performance of our employees as they accomplish important projects, innovate innovate solutions, and/or are recognized by residents and/or partners in our community and region for their outstanding work. And whereas Cody Starr started with the department as a part-time park laborer in 2010, was promoted to a full-time maintenance supervisor in 2015, and whereas Cody performed his duties to the highest level of professionalism while maintaining a commitment to serving the residents of Manassas Park and the patrons of the department, and whereas Cody's skill set included diagnosing and repairing issues with the building's HVAC, electrical, computer, and AV equipment, roof leaks, pool systems, door mechanics, gymnasium partitions, and basketball hoops, and wellness center equipment. And whereas Cody's wealth of knowledge on maintenance issues or problems made him the go-to person for all divisions within the department, he completed work orders with the utmost professionalism and timeliness. Whereas Cody approached every task with a can-do attitude, which often saved the city thousands of dollars in outsourced work. And whereas Cody was a valuable part of the city's special events, assisting with July 4th, Halloween, fall festivals, and Christmas events. And whereas while Cody's workload was never ending, he was still willing to volunteer his time to help other city departments, help fellow co-workers with vehicle and household appliance issues, and come in on his days off to address urgent maintenance issues. And whereas Cody's humble and positive attitude and dedication to his family, friends, co-workers, and the department should be recognized and celebrated. Now therefore be it resolved that the governing body hereby recognizes the great service and accomplishments of Daniel Cody Starr of the Parks and Recreation Department of Manassas Park. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion carries. And we would ask you to come forward and receive this at the podium, ma'am.
If you're able to, or designate someone else, it's okay. What would you like to do?
I just wanted to take this time to thank the city and members of the community for everything they have done to, I don't know words to use to thank you for everything. The support has been unbelievable. Me and my family thank every single one of you and the city for everything. I don't know what else to say, so thank you. Those words don't seem humble enough. But thank you so much for everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We invite everyone to stay for the balance of the meeting, but we understand if you have things that you need to go home and do, so the choice would be yours. But thank you all for coming. Thank you.
To say to mother's office that I'm small, and I can be my presence. There's beauty.
See you one day.
Okay.
It's okay. Everything. Just so I'm so sorry for your loss.
That department's just suffered so much.
Okay, we'll go on to 5B. 5B is a proclamation proclaiming Small Business Saturday. Whereas the government of the City of Manassas Park celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. According to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 31.7 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.9% of all firms with paid employees in the U.S., are responsible for 65.1% of net new jobs created from 2000 to 2019. And whereas small businesses employ 47.1% of the employees in the private sector in the United States, 62% of U.S. small businesses reported that they need to see consumer spending return to pre-COVID levels by the end of 2020 in order to stay in business. 65% of U.S. small business owners said it would be most helpful to their business to have their regulars return and start making purchases again. And 3/4 of U.S. consumers are currently looking for ways to shop small and support their community. And whereas 96% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday agreed that shopping at small independently owned businesses supports their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact, and 97% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday agree that small businesses are essential to their community. And whereas 95% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday reported the day makes them want to shop or eat at small independently owned businesses all year long, not just during the holiday season. And whereas Manassas Park supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our communities, and whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Jeanette Rischel, Mayor of Manassas Park, Virginia, do hereby proclaim November 28th, 2020 as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Is there a way that maybe we could have, maybe put out on our Facebook feed or something, and have some of the businesses in Manassas Park promote themselves? Is it possible? I mean, maybe to encourage them to kind of promote themselves within Manassas Park?
I'm not sure that crosses the line to advertising, which we have not done in the past.
Usually it's better to kind of set up like a Manassas Park business page and then just, and it's usually better either host it, but EDA is probably the best way to do it, is have the Economic Development Authority just create a generic page and allow businesses to actually become members of that page and to then to be able to make posts on there as well. But it's usually done through downtown business page or some kind of page. But it's something we can probably look at with the EDA to get set up.
Is it possible at this juncture, because we don't have kind of all that set up at this point, is just to put a hashtag it a certain way? Like, I don't know, MP small business. I mean, just something that the businesses themselves could then just could hashtag, and you could search by it, and people like say Jeanette and you and I, we could all shop there and then hashtag the picture, we shopped at wherever in the city. Is that possible where it'd be a little bit easier?
I'm not social media savvy, so it's something I can look into and we can get back to you on that one to see.
I just thought it was a easy way for our businesses to kind of promote themselves.
Moving on to consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of approval of the minutes of September 29th, November 4th, and November 10th, and Fire and Rescue Department designation of surplus equipment. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. There is no unfinished business, so moving on to new business. We have an appointment to the Economic Development Authority. First of all, we want to thank everyone for your willingness to serve on the Manassas Park Economic Development Authority, and we have an excellent group of volunteers who stepped forward to serve. We appreciate that. Per the Code of Virginia 15.2-4904, the EDA members must be appointed for staggered terms. Therefore, the recommended motion for appointment is that the governing body appoint the following individuals as directors of the Economic Development Authority for the terms stated. Mr. Len Tabachi for 1 year, Mr. Diego Bonilla for 1 year, Mr. Michael Jones for 2 years, Ms. Laura Odell for 3 years, Mr. Mark Batros for 4 years. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you.
If we have more people that, because it can have 7 people, right?
Absolutely.
So if we
yes.
have additional people, just so the public knows too, if there are additional people that didn't maybe see the announcement for this initial round, that we can appoint, I don't want to say after the fact, but as we go along, we can appoint up to the maximum of the 7 people.
And we certainly encourage everyone to visit the city website because Lena advertises not just for this, but for everything that needs volunteers. Lena advertises for it.
And we have received it. Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry. What?
We received another application today with a pretty good resume.
Okay, excellent.
Awesome. Oh, for EDA?
For EDA.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, moving on to 9B, Manassas Park Library.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
we need to reappoint the treasurer.
Yes, we did. That was one of the names that was read off.
Oh,
Yes, we did.
I see.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
9B, Manassas Park City Library, ILL, and security footage policy. Excuse me.
Okay. And we have Holly Ritchie, our library director, joining us. Are you there, Holly?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Great.
Welcome, Holly.
Holly, do you want to present anything, Holly, or just answer any questions?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. The first one is for interlibrary loan policy to allow us to offer interlibrary loans for our patrons to be able to request items that we don't own, but other libraries within the state or within the country own. We do, as previously approved, we do charge a $5 fine for that. So that's just a policy for that. And then the other one is for our security system, which has been now in place.
Thank you. We'll start with questions. The folks at home, Councilmember Machado.
Hi, Holly. This is Miriam Machado. I just want to know how is the library used now by Manassas Park residents? Do you see several patrons coming and borrow books? So what is the activity currently?
Yeah, it's actually fairly high. We have quite a few regulars that will come in. We have a couple that come in every other day, a couple that will come in weekly. Some of them will stay for a couple of hours working on either schoolwork or actually working instead of working in a home office. It's them kind of out and about. And then we have quite a few people that will come in every week and exchange books. Our circulation is fairly high. We're almost at 1,000 circulations a month, which is pretty good considering the pandemic with our opening.
Great. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed.
Yeah, I only have one question in regards to the security footage. They say if there was an incident and an external, what's the word? If there's an external request to review the surveillance, who authorizes that? Is that the board? Would that be the director, or does that fall on the city?
So it will be the city manager or me will be authorized to release it, but I would discuss with the city manager.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
Hi, Holly. I was wondering, does the library accept book donations?
Yeah, in normal times we do. I'm actually planning a book donation day right now for December to try to control how many that we are pulling in. We don't have a large facility for storing them right now. So because they have to be quarantined once they're received, we're planning that around a specific day. I don't have that official day yet, but it will be released with the next one, newsletter.
Thank you.
That's interesting. How long are the books quarantined for?
Right now, we're putting them in for 7 days since we are stacking them. That just ensures completely that the virus is inactive.
Mm-hmm. And do you want them to be a specific condition, like you want books that are in really good condition, or what are your standards?
Yeah, we definitely prefer books that are in good condition. We do look through everything before it is added to the collection, and we take a look to see if it has yellowing pages, if the binding's falling apart. If it's something like a medical nonfiction book, then we'll see what year it was released to make sure that it is current and we're not putting inaccurate information on our shelves as well. And so we definitely can look through all of that ourselves, but those are some of the criteria. And anyone who is curious on some of the criteria that we look for in donations is more than welcome to contact us and we can let them know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councilmember Mensing.
For donations, do you take just books, or will you also be looking at like periodicals and DVDs? Or what kind of material will you accept?
Right now it's just books and DVDs. We're not taking periodicals since they are high touch points because of COVID, and they tend to go out of date very quickly is the other aspect. But it is something that once COVID has passed, we might consider taking in later.
Thanks.
And in the future for periodicals, we might take in periodical donations and use them for different crafts and programs, even if they're not put on the shelf. Those types of donations are always appreciated for various programs and different things.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Yeah. I was concerned that we're charging for interlibrary loans.
Yeah, just as an FYI.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I said I'm very concerned that we're charging for interlibrary loans.
But that's kind of standard. Like the Falls Church, they have a $4 fee, so ours is $1 more. But again, Falls Church is in a much better fiscal situation than we are. So we're only charging $1 more than Falls Church.
Why are we charging one at all?
It's part of our processing. I mean, it's a kind of standard operation.
What's the expense that we're incurring to charge our residents a fee?
So Holly, maybe if you can tackle that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main expense is for postage. We do have to send any postage and pay for any postage that occurs between us and the other libraries.
Do you go and pick up items from the adjacent library systems?
If they're nearby, it's not very typical for us to go and grab them ourselves, but it's something that we can definitely look into. But most of the time, anyone who's looking into ILL are the items that they're looking for can't be found within a about 50-mile radius. They tend to be from further away.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was going to point out that maybe there needs to be some contact with Prince William, because if we're borrowing from them, they actually have the system in place because they have couriers that go between all their libraries already. Maybe we need to reach out to them, because if we're borrowing something from Prince William, they might be able to put us as like an on-demand spot in order to, so we wouldn't incur any cost.
I can definitely check with them and see if that's a possibility. I will say that's not very common, since it would be on them for driving and all of that. Libraries tend to keep their courier systems only within their branches. But it is something that I can check with them and see if it's something that we can see. I have spoken recently to the the manager of the Central Library, since they will be opening up again soon. Me and her are going back and forth for any materials that are accidentally returned, whether it's our materials at their location or their materials at ours. So maybe we can see about anything with ILL in that regard.
Yeah, I would hesitate to do so if it's not a standard practice, simply because we just separated from the Prince William Library System, and that wasn't a simple process. It wasn't a simple dialogue between the city and the county. I just would not want to reopen old wounds. I think we're operating fine right now, and I really don't want to ask that much of the Prince William Library System.
And I would also hesitate to use our staff time to go and to pick up or to drop off a book, because you're going to end up spending more money in staff time than you would save on the postage.
Right. It'd be kind of silly if something was going back to Central and from our library, and we're going to incur costs when it's, their library is actually in our city. We just gave them the land. I mean, it's actually.
I will say that one thing that we try to do whenever anyone is looking for a book, and if it is in Prince William, we do let them know where it currently resides, in case that they want to just go and get it, so that they have an option that doesn't cost money. We are always looking for that, and since we do have Central right down the street, I know most people will most likely just go there themselves rather than worry about the ILL.
Exactly.
Same thing with Fairfax, and Centerville has a main library in Centerville.
Do you have any follow-up?
No.
No? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Holly, very much. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the addition of the interlibrary loan policy and the security footage policy to the city's library operating policies as recommended by the Library Advisory Board and as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much, Holly.
Thank you.
Moving on to Fire and Rescue CARES Act. I'm sorry, is there a question?
Yeah, before we continue, I don't know if I missed this or not. Do we have a reciprocity agreement with other libraries?
Oh, what kind of
Yes,
agreement?
the reciprocal, we have reciprocal agreement with all of most of the Northern Virginia libraries, very many in Southern Maryland and DC library.
It's a part of the COG agreement that Laszlo and staff referred to when they made a presentation, some months ago.
Right.
I think it was last.
Well, just to follow up on Shoemaker's point, if we have that agreement, most libraries don't charge a fee. My understanding is they only charge if we do not have that agreement.
No, that's not the case.
Correct. So for the reciprocal, it means that they are able to get library cards at those locations, not necessarily that the library will send us the book. So that's where the difference between the ILL and the reciprocal are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on to 9C, Fire and Rescue CARES Act, Reserve EOC and Meeting Room.
Good evening again, Madam Mayor and members of the body. So tonight we're going to talk about spending CARES funding again. The City of Manassas Park Fire Rescue Department is in need of updating its city's reserve EOC in the event of a COVID-19 issue. issues where the primary EOC would be quarantined or off limits to be used. The update would need to include various amounts of audio and visual equipment to allow the room to function properly during the EOC activation. The need to create a redundant reserve EOC in an attempt to bring proactive during the COVID-19 pandemic. This room received no updates in several years, so we're definitely behind times with the equipment in this room. So these improvements to the reserve EOC would also allow adding additional AV equipment to both conference rooms and a backup training site for our personnel at the Fire and Rescue Department. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the city stood up the food hotline, which was hosted in the reserve EOC for almost 6 months. This left our personnel without the ability to have a training site, which was really tough. So the goal would be to be able to set up a reserve training site as well as update the current reserve EOC. The goal is not to exceed 50,000, and the staff recommendation would be to allow the city manager to authorize the spending of CARES Act funding for the required updates to the reserve EOC, reserve training room, and conference rooms not to exceed the 50,000.
And we actually may not be able to do this. Later tonight, I'm going to be briefing on the CARES Act budget. So we're still asking for the authority because in December, early to mid-December, we're going to be grouping together again and just reevaluating. And if there's extra funding, parts of this is what we'd be looking to utilize that money for. But we're out of money per the current spending plan. I'll show you that later tonight. But we still want this authority just in case we have some flexibility in December.
It would be nice if we could do this because I think this is important to have the reserve EOC. Does this bring the backup EOC up to the same functionality as the primary EOC? It does. Okay, that's excellent. I mean, there's certainly value in a certain degree of redundancy. Yeah, thank you.
I do remember a time where they had a homicide investigation at the primary EOC.
I'm sorry?
There was a homicide investigation at the primary EOC. And we had to open up the reserve EOC. At that time, we didn't have the capabilities that the primary EOC would have, so
I see.
we kind of would have been working really in the dark.
Oh, wow. I really hope that we can do this. Like you say, for any reason, if the primary goes down, the secondary becomes essential. And we never know what's going to happen, what sequence of events will happen. I'm old enough to remember January 13th, 1982. And that's the day that the Air Florida flight went into, it clipped the 14th Street Bridge before it went into the Potomac. And 30 minutes after that, there was a derailment on Metro, causing the death of 3 people. And over all of this was a terrible snowstorm that brought gridlock to the Metro area and to Northern Virginia. And I can just imagine, I can't imagine what the first responders went through. So none of us can imagine what it's like to have a series of events of this magnitude. And it could happen anywhere. We don't have a crystal ball. So, thank you. Let's start with questions at home. Councilmember Machado?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Mensing?
No questions. Thanks.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
It seems like a lot of money for one room. That's all I'd say.
That's going to be 3 rooms.
Okay.
Do you have a follow-up? Okay. Well, I think it's a fantastic idea, and I hope that we can do this. So with that, the motion is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign the necessary contractual documents to upgrade the city's reserve EOC equipment in the fire and rescue station at a cost not to exceed $50,000 using funding from the CARES Act as presented, subject to final city attorney review. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second, okay. Motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Chief. And, oh, you're still up. CARES Act HVAC UV system.
Wait a minute.
I beg your
Did you want to abstain from that
Preston,
vote?
it shouldn't have.
Oh, I'm
abstained.
sorry.
His
Was there an,
lips are moving, but we can't hear him.
couldn't hear, was there an abstention?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Banks abstained. I couldn't hear you, Preston.
His lips were going, but
Okay, his
nothing was coming
lips
out.
were going.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right, so under item 9D,
Okay.
the fire department would ask for more CARES Act money to replace the HVA system in the building. The city of Manassas Park Fire and Rescue Department currently has a failing HVA system in this facility. The Fire and Rescue Department houses medical personnel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, which are regularly at the front lines of emergencies such as COVID-19 and responses and transports to the hospital. And it's critical that we maintain equipment necessary for to react to quickly in the cases of novel infection. The HVAC system are critical line of defense against the spread of contagious diseases. The goal is to replace the outdated and failing HVAC system with a air filtration system that is designed to kill diseases such as the COVID-19 via the use of UV lights. The HVAC system is designed and constructed to regulate airflow, allowing the facility to maintain the temperatures that are ideal for both human comfort and medical equipment functionality. The COVID-19 pandemic has underscored the importance of having contamination control measures to protect personnel and equipment required to aid in the response of efficient and effective patient care. This purchase will be used under the guidance set forth under the CARES Act spending allowance, reducing potential airborne spread of COVID-19 and other viruses at the fire rescue station to keep the fire rescue personnel safe and healthy to serve our community. So our facilities maintenance manager, Kenny Whitson, went to work on this with a very short timeline, and he got back a really good proposal of $175,500. So the staff recommendation is going to be to let the governing body authorize the city manager to approve the purchase of the HVA system with UV light system based off the recommendation of the city's facilities manager at a cost of $175,500. They'll spread the spread of COVID-19 virus to the fire station.
I just want to know, I had an error on the agenda that was posted that I had 175,000 even, but it is 175,500. That was my mistake.
It's, can you say that again?
Yeah, so it's $175,500.
500. Okay, so that would also change the motion.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that'll be the second page of the
Okay. Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, thank you, Chief. Can the disease-killing ultraviolet light aspect of this be retrofitted into an existing system?
Currently, I do not believe, because Howard might be able to speak to this more than I could, but based off of the type of freons in the system.
Okay.
The system was put in back in 2004.
Uh-huh.
I think we went from different style of freons. Currently, I think we're at 134 or something now. So I don't believe that it can be retrofitted.
Okay, okay.
That's what, this is the Kenny specialty, so I don't believe it can
Yeah.
be retrofitted.
I was thinking of other city buildings, but most particularly, I was thinking of the Costello Park Rec Center, because that is a designated emergency shelter. So that's why I asked about retrofitting.
You know, just looking through the proposal is really a really interesting system.
I beg your pardon?
Looking through the proposal, it's a very interesting system with all the lights and
No.
all the.
It looks very impressive, very
I think
impressive.
if we receive a round 2 from the Congress next year, I think that's exactly what we were thinking as well, as exploring
Okay.
this for for other facilities as well.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, that would be round 3, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hope.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Machado?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
I just wanted to know how much energy savings there is in this system versus the system that we currently have.
We have no answer to that. So, that maybe if Calvin maybe has a suggestion.
Calvin, any idea, or do we need to check with Kenny?
Yeah, we'd have to check the specs. I'm not sure what the efficiency with the SEER rating on the old unit was, and not really, it was already a gas furnace, so there's not a lot of efficiency to be saved on the heat side, unless it's an actual dual heat unit. But that's not what I see in the proposal,
So this equipment is only for air conditioning?
I couldn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
I said that this system is only for air conditioning then.
Yeah, that's for heating and air.
He just said that there's a gas furnace.
What was that, Calvin?
Existing gas furnace, so there wouldn't be much saved, right? There's a gas furnace that heats the bay. The big areas, the open area, is heated separately.
I see.
The living space itself.
I see. Okay, so we have a dual system so that the bays are furnace with gas, and then the other office and other spaces are going to be with this unit, which is heating and air conditioning.
I know it's heating and air conditioning now because we have to have Kenny come down when it gets cool or when it gets warm to manually switch it from heat to air conditioning because the system just won't function properly. We've seen a lot of Kenny lately.
Okay. Will this pass the COVID test?
Oh yeah, I mean this has been a priority for like most school systems.
Okay.
Have been to get this kind of system as their kids come back. So protecting our EMS employees, that's kind of one of the top priorities of the CARES Act.
I'm just because I read about Montgomery County, Maryland, just got hand slapped because they did expenses that they now have to pay back because they were not approved.
Yeah.
Expenses through CARES that they counted but weren't. I just don't want anybody to come back and say, well, you have a 16-year-old system that you should have replaced anyway, and you've used CARES Act money to replace it, even with you say you couldn't be retrofitted, which that was what my question was going to be. I'm just concerned that if we, to ever get an audit, that they might make that claim that we should have replaced the system with our own dollars.
What helps us with this one is that it wasn't on the budget. So they're saying anything that is needed to maintain fire and EMS services that wasn't on our budget right now, but specifically also with the goal of preventing illnesses and killing viruses. So this one fit, but you're absolutely right. This has been one of the hardest things to deal with because it seems like almost every month the treasurer came out with like updated guidance. So we have to Paul and I would read through like 80 pages of documents every month about different things. That's what you'll see later tonight, like the meals tax, the B-poll plan to return money, not allowed. So I'm hoping the next wave of funding, whether it's the HEROES Act or whatever it is, will give us more flexibility to help out small businesses and others, whereas the CARES Act, there was just so many restrictions on it, and you're absolutely right, but we did our best to keep. But that's why we've had to like change the budget around so many times because of things that like the hazard pay stipend. Remember, we were going to do it for all, and we found out just for fire, police, DSS, and then Parks and Rec because they were doing COVID-19 direct operations. So there's a lot of regulations related to this, but this one's specifically oriented towards keeping our fire.
Right.
And
I mean, I'm not opposed to the concept. I mean, in terms of doing the ultraviolet, and where I know that it will help because I know our gym has it, and I don't know that they replaced the entire HVAC system in a privately owned building because they don't own that space, they lease.
Yeah.
So that was why I was wondering if we could retrofit that system into what we currently have, but we can't.
from my understanding, we can't, but also the system is failing. So if you have a cold fire station and during a flu and COVID season, we don't want our employees getting sick. So the system's just not working anymore either, right? And so but our understanding also is the retrofit could not work with the current system as well.
Okay.
But we need a functional system as well to house our employees.
This wasn't on the CIP?
Wasn't on the CIP, no.
Do we have other?
All the boxes are checked.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't where I was going with that. So we had no plan for this system to fail given its age?
Well, again, we're the facilities CIP budget is kind of very new because we finally have a facility manager. So have we begun to do a comprehensive analysis of all of our facilities? Yeah, I mean, we could still do a lot more, but this one directly was not in the, remember, they don't even look at the CIP for CARES Act. They look at the FY21 and FY22 budgets. That's what they're really focused on.
Okay.
So they're saying, actually, I think it was the FY21 budget wasn't on your budget in March when the funds were approved, right? If it wasn't on your budget then you could use this money for that purposes, but this project wasn't identified.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
But I will follow up about energy savings as well, and then your question about hashtags also. I'll try to follow up with that.
Okay, staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign the necessary contractual documents to purchase and install a new HVAC system with a UV light system for the fire and rescue station at a cost not to exceed $175,500 using funding from the CARES Act as presented, subject to final review by city attorney. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
One abstention.
One abstention from Vice Mayor Banks, and the motion passes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief. Okay, next is Community Development Connor Drive Funding Resolution. Is that Calvin?
That is Calvin.
Yeah. Welcome, Calvin.
Evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor Banks, members of the council, members of staff, citizens, guests. Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development, here this evening to talk about the Connor Drive Extension Project. We are finally at a phase. All right-of-way has been acquired. We have released the utilities to start relocating, but we have not addressed a funding structure issue with VDOT. We're currently under a revenue sharing agreement with VDOT that shows a deficit based on the last construction estimate that was submitted. In order to proceed with construction, VDOT requires that we show adequate funding for the project. So I've done a brief synopsis in the agenda item. When the project was originally conceived in the CIP years ago, there was a placeholder of $400,000, and that was what we used to base the original funding application on for VDOT in 2011. The project didn't get started right away. It was a bad time for the city. There wasn't a lot of cash available to do big projects like this. The project really got underway with full design in 2014 through 2017, and by 2017 the estimate had climbed up to $1.4 million. It was basically due to the expanded scope of sidewalk, the improvements that were required on the other end of Connor Drive, and the anticipated right-of-way cost at the time. Due to the increased costs associated with the VDOT revised estimate, we hit another big snag. In 2019, VDOT had seen construction prices soaring, especially in the cities inside of, I guess, north of us, northeast of us, and they had asked all the jurisdictions to look at those bid results, which were coming in higher than engineers' estimates, and modify their construction estimates for their projects that were slated to be bid soon. So we actually went out, sought estimates from Northern Virginia municipalities that had released projects to bid, and modified our bid numbers based on those numbers, and that really drove up the construction estimate. So we saw a $135,000 increase just in line items, basic line items in the unit price list for the project when we did that analysis. There's also about $429,000 out there that's associated with existing Connor Drive. Existing Connor Drive is not in great shape. The residents in the area have been asking us to resurface it. We've done multiple patch jobs every year. The road is really deteriorated in bad condition. $429,000 is actually in a series of ads in the construction estimate. One of those ads would be just to mill and overlay the existing section of Connor Drive when the project is completed and they're top coating the new section. This would clean things up, make it look really nice, because there's also some work on the other end of Connor Drive to expand the entrance. So this would give it a uniform look. However, based on the deterioration levels of existing Connor Drive and the fact that we're designing the extension to look out to FY24, FY26, when we did the analysis, we really anticipated enough traffic to deserve a higher grade pavement section. So the $429,000 would be a complete reconstruction of existing Connor Drive as well. So that would certainly solve any deterioration problems we're currently experiencing with Connor Drive, the existing section of Connor Drive. Another cost we didn't really foresee was the wetlands mitigation costs. There were wetlands on surrounding parcels, and we had to do some culvert modifications and impact those wetlands. And in order to offset those impacts, our best guess at this point, we have not received our permit back from the state, but we're estimating around $200,000 in wetlands mitigation costs. There's also been a change in our anticipated utility relocation costs. Novak has sent us a preliminary estimate and bill for their relocation at $215,000. This was not a cost that we anticipated. We did not expect them to have to do much with their facilities, but they're anticipating not only having to do things to their facilities in the area, but also to modify their substation to maintain access for vehicles. So that was an unforeseen cost. Now the estimate sits without any sort of contingency moving forward, except for the construction contingency, at over $2.5 million for the project. There's still variables. VDOT has already seen construction prices drop from the spring of 2019. So, understandably, we're in a bit of a financial crisis. Projects aren't moving as fast as they were. There's not as much work out there. So construction bids are coming down slightly. There's also the fact that we may make the decision not to do the full depth reconstruction of the existing Connor, but just mill and overlay the section. We'll take some more borings. If the existing pavement looks like it can survive 10, 15 more years, then we may just choose to mill and overlay, which would save $135,000, $140,000 there as well. So there's still variables associated with the project. What I've done is a presentation on what this would mean to allow the city manager to modify the funding agreement with VDOT. Essentially, we're not in a revenue sharing cycle. Even revenue sharing that was approved that we should be able to spend in January or February of this year had been delayed till the end of this fiscal year or the start of the next fiscal year. Now they've announced that money won't even be available until FY25 or 26. So our hopes of getting any more revenue sharing funds on this project are pretty slim, considering we're going to be out to construction in March. So what we have to do to modify the funding agreement is use local funds to cover the difference. So I've set up a presentation. Are you guys able to see the presentation on the screen?
Give me a second, Calvin. I'm going to make you the presenter.
Do we have it on paper here in front of us?
We do.
All right, Calvin, you should have control there. If you want to share your screen.
right now.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. Cut through the formalities on the title page there, and the work that we've completed so far on the project, we got all the design work done. That sits at 100%. We are actually ready to bid the project. Right-of-way acquisitions are fully completed, and the utility relocations have started. Columbia has pulled their right-of-way permit. Verizon and Comcast are in the process of mobilizing their troops out there, and Novak will be shortly behind. We have submitted the state wetlands application permit and expect to get that finalized, but our consultant is working on that for us. So far to date, our expenditures on the project are $348,889. Of that, because we added some leftover urban funds to the project, and this wasn't even close to a 50-50 reimbursement, urban funds are 98%, VDOT 2% locality. So of the money we've spent so far, we've been reimbursed $256,775 from VDOT. So our out-of-pocket cost on the project so far has only been $92,000. Design was completed under estimate. So that is a very good thing. That leaves money available to further modify the Appendix A, which is the portion, the numbers portion of the VDOT funding agreement. So we'll now be able to shift those leftover design fees over to another phase of the project. Right-of-way acquisition costs were higher than anticipated. We didn't expect to spend so much money on the Birmingham Green acquisition, but that was unavoidable. And utility coordination complications added to consultant costs for the right-of-way phase as well. We did have some change orders with Bowman for how much they had to deal with Novak in trying to get this issue settled for Novak's relocation and Novak's cooperation in the project. The good news is that we still have yet to tap a $200,000 PRTC motor fuels tax resolution because we've only spent $92,000 out of pocket. We could apply for that $92,000 now, or we could wait until our out-of-pocket costs reach $200,000. But $200,000 is due to the city from the motor fuels tax fund as soon as we've spent $200,000. So the way we would need to cover that, the rest of the money would be the Mbta fund. And looking at what the Appendix A will look like moving forward, the current Appendix A only had $156,000 in preliminary engineering funding, but we did not spend that. We had $278,000 in right-of-way funding and $1.16 million in construction. The total project estimate on the books for the VDOT Appendix A is only little under $1.6 million. What the new Appendix A would look like would be reducing the PE base to a reasonable estimate based on the actual expenditures. The right-of-way costs, of course, are increased, and that $200,000 wetlands permit and any future consulting work associated with the wetlands would have to go to the right-of-way phase. And the construction phase is now estimated at a worst case if we use all the adds in the current estimate and the estimate holds true, which I'm not certain it will. I think we'll come in under estimate on this project, but the current construction estimate, if I add a 5% contingency to all remaining costs on the project, we're looking at $1.8 million on construction for a total project cost of about $2.7 million. So this is what the VDOT Appendix A could hypothetically look like. I can't really say that it's what it will look like. VDOT will work with us on getting something put together, but best guess, we're going to wind up with about $1.7 million in city expenses on the project. And those need to come we don't have any more ability to draw down money out of the PRTC Motor Fuels Tax Fund unless we wanted to spend general fund revenue to cover that $1.7 million. We're clearly going to want to use the Mbta local fund. And the Mbta local fund, I've had to break it out into 5-year segments to get it to display nicely so that the numbers are actually visible in a decent font. But I've listed out all the projects that we have from FY21 to FY25. And then the next screen will cover 26 through 30. But as you can see, Connor Drive, these are just the MBTA portions. In the capital submission that I've given for this year, I've broken out, tried to be very exact on the Appendix A's for all the projects we have with VDOT and what exactly our MBTA expenditures are going to look like. And this is currently our best case estimate of what we will spend out of the MBTA fund from 21 to 30. So Connor Drive is going to cost us $604,000 likely in FY21 out of the MBTA fund. The project costs will be higher than that, but VDOT will still be reimbursing us for a portion of that. In FY22, we get to a point where we're pretty much funding the project out of the MBTA local fund because we will have depleted all of our VDOT revenue or VDOT funding agreement at that point. So these are all the projects from FY21 to FY25, and there is a expenditures total on the bottom line that becomes important in the last slides. But as you can see, we're going from spending $2.1 million in 21 to $2.4 million in 22, and then we're dropping back down to a more reasonable level that we're used to at $560,000 in 23. So the next slide shows what that looks like. Okay, the next slide shows what that looks like for 26 through 30. And again, we stay at pretty reasonable funding levels until we get down the road to other big projects that we have lined up in FY28. So that totals line at the bottom of the screen based on all these projects that we've currently got scheduled in the CIP for NBTA funding. Paints a picture about like this. Again, I had to break the chart into 5-year intervals, so it's, at least on this slide, it's top and bottom. So you can follow the flow 21 through 30 on the same slide. The starting balance for FY21 in the MBTA local fund is almost $4 million. The revenue numbers and the C&I equivalent contributions are subject to change. Those are best estimates at this point. We don't know what the economy is going to do. We don't know what the real estate market's going to do. So, you know, I'm trying to run with numbers from the last NBTA 6-year plan, 5-year plan, and make estimates after that. But as you can see, with the starting balance of this year and the projected expenditures, even over the next 2 years, we keep a balance over close to $1 million. And now by FY24, we're getting down to $800,000, but then the fund starts to grow again until FY28, which, if you remember, was another big expenditure year. But from this picture and the projects we currently have planned in the CIP, our NBTA local fund never gets below, much below $900,000. So it's not a bad picture. It looks like we can certainly afford to do this if the governing body so chooses. The resolution before you is to allow the city manager to modify the funding agreement so that we can go to construction on the project. And it's also authorizing Laszlo to consider MBTA funds for this purpose.
Okay. Thank you, Calvin. That was a great presentation. I like the charts.
Can I note something for
Yes.
for the revenues? We beat like the budgeted revenues from the 30% consistently. So those numbers there are kind of forecasted, but we've been doing better than that. And we're still getting the grantor tax money this year as well, which is, we've already got $100,000 so far this year just in grantors, and that's not even reflected there. So each year, as long as we keep getting the grantor's tax, you're looking at close to an extra $200,000, plus we're beating that 30% usually by a few $20,000, $30,000 as well. So that's like a very conservative estimate of our annual revenues. So the reality, our fund balance position is really going to be a lot stronger than that.
The last I spoke with the personnel at the NBTA, they are somewhat optimistic about the revenue streams. We're now at 80 to 90% rebound from before COVID. In other words, transportation and the load on the infrastructure is 80 to 90%. So it appears to be bouncing back. So, and the sales tax revenue stream has always been a relatively strong revenue stream. So do you have another presentation, Laszlo?
No, I'm just trying to get everyone back.
Oh, okay. So we can go into questions now, in other words?
I think I accidentally picked off Calvin. So I tried to make it stop the
Okay.
Can you text, or let me call Calvin, when you try to get so we can see everybody, and can bring it back.
Yeah.
Like Calvin.
Did we lose Calvin?
I kicked him off, unfortunately. I was trying to not make him the presenter, but I accidentally just kicked him off the
Okay.
whole meeting, so.
Okay, well, we'll wait till we get Calvin back before we start the questions.
He's logging back in.
Okay.
What is this? Exit F.
Yeah, you click that.
Good evening again, everyone.
Oh, okay, you're back, Calvin. Thank you. Okay, let's go to questions. Folks at home, Councilmember Machado.
Yes, thank you, Calvin, for the presentation and the refresher. I support this resolution to update this VDOT funding agreement. Since this corner drive extension is so important, the design is already completed. It will help with future city's economic development. So I totally support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
Yes, I echo Councilmember Marcello's statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed.
Yeah, I don't know, the map on the presentation was kind of small. You have I guess on slide 2, it says project area. Is that where the extension is going to happen, or the fixing of the roads in that area alone?
Are you familiar with the existing limits of the Brandy Station subdivision? So currently, if you drive if you go north on Connor Drive from Euclid Avenue, or I guess it would be east on Connor Drive from Euclid Avenue north, you turn onto a well-paved or paved road that goes into the Brandy Station subdivision, and then all of a sudden, at the last entrance to Brandy Station, you hit a set of concrete barriers. And there's a gravel road behind it that leads to a property owned by a subsidiary of U-Haul and then the Novak substation. That gravel road is what is proposed to be turned into actual usable road. The concrete barriers would be removed. Connor Drive would become a throughput from Euclid Avenue to Route 28. The total new construction section is just that gravel section. However, the entire existing section will get sidewalk improvements and will need to be widened at the existing entrance to Euclid Avenue to accommodate the turn radius and things like that. So there will be improvements along the entire section of Connor Drive between Euclid and 28, but only new roadway from the entrance or the last entrance at Brandy Station to 28.
I see. And then on the other end, I guess the extension is also going to be for the downtown development. Are we using these funds for that extension as well?
We have that currently is being negotiated in the development phase, and it looks like the developer may have to do that extension for us as a part of their project. Their project is going to require an outlet onto Manassas Drive. So that project is not included in this project, but likely will not cost the city anything because it's going to become part of a development.
Can you all see the image on the screen?
Yes, yeah, I see it.
Okay, yeah, so this is the phase 4 portion that's gonna be improved for Connor Drive, and then what Calvin was talking about before, this is the Connor Drive section where the project is, and over here is kind of the dead end, and so I can zoom in so you can see the gravel. It's pretty much this area right here that has to have significant construction done. This is Route 28 here at the Central Library, just to orient you. Then you have the U-Haul up here.
So that is the only project we're discussing at this time regarding Connor Drive.
Yeah, we're
Not the downtown development?
Not the downtown, that's being done by the phase 4 developer. So it's just this stretch from Euclid all the way to 28, and then really focused on building that connection to Route 28.
Okay, I understand.
But again, it is, I mean, to the overall, I guess, theme of your question, it's certainly going to improve the downtown by giving people accessibility to the downtown via Connor Drive, and allow residents to use Connor Drive.
Oh, right, no doubt, no. Yeah, I was gonna, that's a true fact, but I guess the Connor Drive would be going into a lot that I'm not, I would, lot, I think it's 1A, I think, so that's why I want to clear before I make a decision.
Yeah, we're not talking about the downtown at all right now. Yeah, we're really just talking about this section.
Okay, then I have no further questions.
Okay. From Centerville to Euclid for the folks at home, that's the section that we're discussing right now. Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
Hi, Calvin. Thank you for your presentation. I'm looking at it on Google Maps. I'm just going to make sure we don't get caught in the sunk cost fallacy. So what's our options if we don't move forward of Connor Drive extension to 28? Can we delay this until 2025, or do we have to move forward with this project?
So because of the state of revenue sharing, what VDOT is currently doing is looking at all the tier 1 revenue sharing projects that are essentially underfunded to move forward, but they're more shovel ready than other projects. So on first application, this would be considered a tier 2 project. This is now considered a tier 1 project, but we didn't have we expected to be out to bid before the last round of revenue sharing. So we didn't submit an application in the last round of revenue sharing. All of those projects that are tier 1 projects that are now underfunded in the state are applying for the deallocated tier 2 project money. So VDOT is in a process right now of evaluating all the tier 2 projects, any projects that are going stagnant, and they're deallocating those funds to divert those funds to shovel-ready tier 1 projects. So there's always the risk that if we don't move forward and we try to wait until 25 or 26 until a revenue sharing application round becomes available, that this project may fall victim to such a deallocation or movement of funds. If we don't continue the project at all, we wind up owing back all the money that VDOT has contributed to the project so far. And as you can see, that's a substantial amount of money. So we would have to give all that money back to VDOT because we wouldn't be moving forward with the project.
What is that total, Calvin?
100,000, right? 250.
So I believe it was
256,000.
give me just a second.
Okay, 256, there's nothing else added on to that.
I think it's just, Calvin, it was on your slide 3. I think it's at $256,775.
Okay.
That says reimbursed to date.
Okay, thank you.
Reimbursed by VDOT so far, they've contributed $256,000, nearly $257,000 to this project, and that's what they would expect to be paid back if we decided to scrap the project.
Okay, thank you.
There's two unique scenarios we're talking about. If we decided to not move forward at all with the project, we would owe that 257 back. If we decided to hold off and wait on the project, there's several considerations. One is they may deallocate funding to the project as a whole to move that funding to shovel-ready Tier 1 projects. They may decide to let us keep the funding and temporarily move the money away from the project to fund other projects, but by 25, 26, we'll likely have increased costs associated with the project. So, you know, we played this game for a long time with Connor Drive, and that's what's really driven up the construction estimate, is because the longer we wait, the more inflation hits construction costs in Northern Virginia. So, yes, there is a possibility to wait till 25, 26, see if we can get more revenue sharing, but you're going to see a cost increase just by waiting, you know, 5 or 6 more years to advertise the project.
Thank you, Calvin. And for the residents at home, that's on page 3 of the slide, and the city would have to give back almost $257,000 to VDOT. Okay, thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Vice Mayor Banks?
Yeah, I would comment. It's 257,000 plus the 92. I mean, we've already spent 92,000, so we would spend a considerable amount of money if we do decide to pull back. So thanks for explaining it, Calvin. My other question is, you mentioned how the Tier 1 funding is now going into the Tier 2 funding. Is it a possibility that it's going to affect our, you know, the Tier 2 project funding, that those projects may be deallocated because of the overflow of Tier 1 projects?
Yeah, VDOT has already contacted all the jurisdictions based on action out of the General Assembly, and what VDOT wants to do is to look at any Tier 2 projects that are not currently ready to go, Tier 2 projects that have fallen behind in their design or their right-of-way phase, and they're looking to deallocate projects that just aren't moving at all. And they're looking to shift funding away from Tier 2 projects temporarily and delay the timeline of those projects further to get these Tier 1 projects under construction. Quite frankly, projects under construction and completed look good. Projects still in design and right-of-way phase don't really show the state that they're moving the money properly. So we played this game a couple different times in my history at the city, where you get these calls from VDOT and you have these meetings where you discuss your ability to move forward with projects. And if you can't move forward, they're going to move your money temporarily, deallocate it altogether. So that is what's happening in the state right now. They're looking for available funding because they have a substantial number of Tier 1 projects that are ready to go. They're just not quite there with their funding for the construction phase.
Okay, thanks. And I remember the Connor Drive extension had some parking spaces as well along the road. Is that right?
Yeah, it would be nice if we could have straight parallel parking along both sides. But on this southeastern boundary of Connor Drive, there are very large electric poles. So what we've had to do in the design is actually work around those electric poles. So we probably lost in the process working around those poles 10 to 15 parallel spaces, but there will be parallel parking on both sides of Connor Drive, all the way from Euclid to Sandstone, and then parallel parking on one side of Connor Drive from Sandstone to Centerville Road.
Because I know that parking is an issue in that area. So just trying to do all that we can.
It is, and that providing that extra parking was a significant driver to the right-of-way costs and the construction estimate, because by working around those utility poles and cutting farther into the Birmingham Green property, we really increased our right-of-way costs. But it is something that's needed in that section of the city. They do need extra parking, so it didn't make sense to move forward without parking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
My final question is, going back to Connor Drive and Euclid Avenue, that intersection, looking in the future, do you foresee like a four-way intersection or a possibility of a stoplight if it gets a lot of traffic flow and Connor Drive extension becomes a major way to get to 28?
So the modeling, of course, is very difficult as to what people will decide to do. If in the morning, the AM rush, if people decide to use Connor Drive to cut to 28, they still have to go through the Manassas Drive signal. So it's not anticipated that the AM traffic will utilize Connor Drive very much. The downtown development and the new residents in the downtown and the existing residents in the downtown will almost certainly reap the benefits of having Connor Drive as a direct access to Route 28. They'll be able to stay off of Manassas Drive. When Manassas Drive is crowded with traffic, they'll have an alternative route. And if that happens, and there's so many people in the downtown that Connor Drive, the intersection of Connor and Euclid becomes congested and hard to manage, and I think we'll be happy to fund a warrant study and see if we need a signal there or what we need to do. But that's really good news for the city if downtown development is taken off and we have that many people using that section of Connor Drive and that intersection. That's a good sign. So it is quite possible that in the future we'll need a warrant study for that intersection. But based on preliminary modeling, no signal was justified at this time.
We don't need to have like certain amount of space or land available for the stoplight to be placed there?
Not really. You do have to find a place to put your cabinet and controller, and you do have to go in and bore under the roadway and get your underground conduit to your masts, and you would have to have a place to set masts, but there's so many options with mast arms these days. Mast poles can usually be set in the corner, and mast arms are increasingly growing in length these days, so it's amazing what you do. You don't really need a median anymore, as long as you can get mast arms that will reach across the intersection.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I want to reiterate a point that Calvin made. I think that this project, I think why we can't delay is if people are concerned about the additional traffic from downtown, this is going to help alleviate that. Because to Calvin's point, all of these developments are going to use that road. It's just much quicker. If you've driven, as many of you I'm sure have, in the morning trying to get onto 28 from Manassas Drive, you'll see when this light is green for northbound traffic, a lot of cars get through. But if it's backed up to here, a lot of cars will get through, but then they'll be backed up to this point. So all these cars turning right get stuck here. So it just keeps backing up all the way like to the fire station sometimes. So it's not the traffic on Manassas Drive that's causing it. It's the backup over here and the fact that you have a lot more cars flowing here and it's just backing up to this point. So when they're trying to turn right, it's just how it's all synced. But if you can avoid that backup over here, which again, a lot of these residents will do, and then these residents will do as well. It just helps take some of the traffic off Manassas Drive and ease that tension for the residents and that seemed to be one of the major concerns with the downtown was that traffic flow. So this project would help with that.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. I mean, you need options besides just one road to 28.
Yeah, we need better flow. Does that conclude your questions, Vice Mayor Banks?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Mensing.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say just that we all say that we're very concerned about how traffic is going to be impacted on Manassas Drive for the development. This looks like a very good solution that's already underway, so.
Yeah, I think it will reduce existing traffic on there from the residents who are living right there, so.
Yeah.
It seems like it'll help traffic out on Manassas Drive.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Councilmember Shoemaker.
Yeah, I just have some real concerns about this proposal because, when we talk to residents, this isn't what they want. They want repaving of roads, and we tell them we don't have more money to do that with. This is $1 million. This is 4 times what we spend on repaving. And that's just the change of what we're asking. That isn't even the total cost of the whole project. That's just the additional money we need to pump into it to get it to work with the way we have it structured. But we tell people we don't have any money. So that's actually a false statement then. We do have money, we're just not using it for that purpose. That is one of the number one things I hear people say is they want especially on the west side, but not exclusively. There's stuff on the east side too that needs it, that we need more repaving. And I feel like this project has just ballooned. I mean, even from the last time when you presented it 3 years ago, it's now $1 million more. I mean, this started at 400,000 and now we're talking about 2.7 million. And I realize that some things have seemed to have grown, but we're sucking a lot of our transportation money into this project. You know, if we're justifying it by saying we're going to help our downtown development, that just fuels the whole point of that residents feel like the whole focus of our city right now is on downtown development, and their neighborhoods are not getting attention that they feel, and they pay taxes and they should get attention. When your street is in terrible shape and has potholes and you want your street to be repaved, and I understand that. I live on a private street. We pay HOA dues to maintain it. But when you live on a city street and it's in poor condition, and I walked through this whole city, did a lot of walking this fall. There are a lot of streets in very poor conditions, and this is not what they want. And, you know, we can say, we're the elected leaders, we need to look at the bigger picture, but if we're supposed to reflect what our residents want, this isn't what it is. You know, we could pay VDOT back and have $700,000 to repave in addition to what we're already going to use to repave. We could put $1 million in repaving this year instead of doing this. That's my major concern with this project, is it just escalates in price and it's taking way more money out of the pots of money that we have to do the things in transportation that our residents have been begging us to do. And then we tell them we don't have the money to do it. Well, we do. We're just not doing it for that purpose. And that's what bothers me with this project. It also is going to pour a lot of traffic down there that doesn't currently exist for the people that live in Stonebridge 2, Section 2, and in Brandy Station. There's going to be lots and lots of cut-through traffic. It's right next to a school that has over 2,000 students. By definition, some of them are going to go there because it's kind of like water. It's going to go to the easiest place to move. And because they know that the police in Manassas Park sit down on Euclid and run radar every day. I see it. I live there. They sit right there and they catch them all speeding. So they're like, oh, we'll go a different way then, just try to get around the speed trap. I mean, there's some negative things about this. We're going to pour lots and lots of traffic down on Connor Drive in a residential area the traffic doesn't currently exist because they can't get to 28, so they don't go that way. So there's some unintended consequences with this proposal that could happen in that regard. I realize I've heard my colleagues, I realize it's going to pass. But I want to point out, if you're for, more robust repaving, we could do it. We're just not doing it.
We're choosing to spend resources in a balanced way. Everything needs to get done.
But I don't hear any of our residents say we need to do this. There's not one person I've ever heard that said we need to extend Connor Drive. Actually, Connor Drive used to go through. At some point it was blocked, and I don't know, it's probably been 15 or 20 years, but at one point the road existed, so I don't even know why it ever got blocked off. Probably because people didn't want lots of people driving down there in the first place.
I thought from what we've been hearing from our residents.
Can you take your mask off?
Sure. I guess I'm a little confused. I thought one of the major priorities coming from our residents was to help their morning commute on Manassas Drive and the return commute. That's traffic, I thought, was the top priority of our residents, which is why we put so much emphasis on Route 20 improvement. So why we wouldn't take on an extra project to give residents an extra option and to remove cars from Manassas Drive. You're right about the cut through, but it's already happening. It's just all going to Manassas Drive now. So to give people another option, I thought that was a priority as well.
I don't think it's going to help the 28 traffic.
No, not the 28 traffic, the Manassas Drive traffic. We're not talking about 28. We have very little control over 28. We're talking about residents' ability to get on the 28.
I mean, I'd like to see this money spent on repaving. That's what I hear our residents saying.
You said that, like, I get your point. I'm just saying, I thought that traffic was also a priority. Traffic mitigation was a priority on Manassas Drive. So when you say repaving is a priority, we agree with you. You know, two things can be true. You're saying we have the money. Okay, we have the money for 1 year of what the recommended, like if we use this $1 million, that's 1 year of recommended repaving that's needed. We're spending only $250,000. That'll just be 1 year. So you're not really resolving all the repaving issues. You're doing more. You're absolutely right. But you are tackling a traffic priority of residents. So we're doing repaving. It's not like we're not going to be doing repaving every year, but we're also trying to do traffic mitigation. This is one major contribution that we can do. Again, we're such a small player when it comes to the overall Route 28 traffic mitigation. We're doing all we can to help our regional partners with that, but we're also trying to make Manassas Drive an easier commute for our residents as well. And this is one important way to do that.
Yeah, I just feel like this is going to have small benefit for Manassas Park, and but this new road will be a Prince William County road. The people that we'll see driving on it won't be very many Manassas Park people. It's going to be a Prince William County and a Manassas City road, and those are the drivers that it's going to help.
But it'll help. They won't be using Manassas Drive now. So that does help our residents. Like our residents don't care like who's on Manassas Drive. They want to get to 28 a lot easier. Because it does, I'm telling you, it backs up.
Yeah.
So many times I've seen it back up all the way over here, and it's not because of the number of vehicles on Manassas Drive, it's because of the flow of 28 and how it backs up here, and because they get the green light by the time all of them go again. By the time all this clears up, right, these people now cross and it's turned red for them down there, and it's like backed up to here, and it's just so difficult for our residents. That's why so many people will cut on the Bloom's Quarry to get over there. It's such a frustrating experience for the commuters. So just to give them a different option to be part of that traffic that can get through that light, right? They can make that choice now. Besides just going to Bloom's Quarry, they can now have the Connor Drive option as well.
Do you have any questions?
If I may, I take a lot of comments from the public on resurfacing, and I'd have to say that the existing section of Connor is probably the most complained about section of roadway in the city. We get 4 to 5 complaints from citizens every year demanding that we resurface existing Connor. This has been a high priority section in our paving priorities for several years. We have not wanted to resurface it due to the project being imminent, but the $425,000 of that $990,000 figure is for the complete reconstruction and resurfacing of existing Connor Drive. We would be resurfacing Connor Drive, the existing section anyway. The full depth reconstruction means that we would not be investing resurfacing dollars 1 year and coming back and reinvesting resurfacing dollars 5-6 years down the road like happened with Scott Drive. So $425,000 of that $996,000 is to address an already dilapidated piece of pavement in Manassas Park. So, and remember that $110,000 of that is a 5% contingency that I've built in just so that we don't have to revisit this funding agreement before the end of the project. I don't expect that the project's actually going to cost $2.6 million when all is said and done, or $2.7 million when all is said and done. But the contingency is a safety net to allow for unknown and protect us from having to go back and modify the funding agreement with VDOT again. But I think it's important to note that I would have to recommend existing Connor Drive for resurfacing this spring if Connor Drive extension project wasn't happening, because $425,000, the Connor Drive extension project, is the full depth reconstruction and resurfacing of existing Connor Drive, which is one of the worst pieces of pavement in the city.
Thank you, Calvin.
Also, if I can add also for, I guess, if there are residents who are concerned, I guess, that we're too focused on the downtown, there's a reason if we are focused on the downtown, it's to increase our revenues so we can do the broad scale things that they're looking for, like tax reductions, funding for schools, funding for police that serve the entire community, right? Funding for DSS that serves the entire community, funding for Parks and Rec that serves the entire community, and the community center on the west side as well. So it's to have the resources to better serve them because we just don't have them right now. So it's more of an investment to be able to do more in the future. So I understand that if the perception is we're very focused on that, but it's so that we can do more for them on all the other services. So I think that's just again, maybe a better communication job that I need to do to make sure the residents can understand why we're focused on it.
Questions, Donald? Any more? No? Okay. Okay, and I have no questions. Staff recommendation is that the governing body adopt the resolution supporting local funding allocations to Connor Drive Extension Project, VDOT UPC 101302, as presented. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you, Calvin. Moving on to acquisition implementation of Microsoft Office 365.
All right. And that is Don Spady. Are you on, Don? There we go.
Yes, I am.
Hi. Welcome, Don.
Welcome. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and governing body. I'm really excited tonight about this one. I've been looking for this one quite a few years. Some of you may know. We are looking to move away from our on-site exchange platform. Right now, the server it's on is end of life. The server exchange software is end of life. And as a lot of you probably already know, that Microsoft is moving away from doing just Exchange, Outlook, and all the others, that they've gone into a one type of thing called Microsoft 365 now. With that, we're looking to move our staff of 251 mailboxes over to the cloud base, which will have a better capability of online use and mobile app, especially right now with that thing going on with COVID. With that being said, we're looking to have client first come in who have done this move to the cloud quite a few times to help us with that, so that we're not having any issues with mailboxes or missing email or missing mailboxes. Some of the other benefits of moving to Microsoft 365 is that we won't have to pay for licenses for shared mailboxes. Like we have a mailbox that's for front desk, because there's so many at the community center that use the front desk. They share that mailbox as a part-time staff. We don't have to pay a license for that. Also, with it being 365, we'll also be able to use multiple license more than once, which means, like, for the police officers, and I get this a lot from them, that would like to have the licensed Microsoft Office suite of Word and Outlook on their MDTs in the cars. And while this way we can install it on their computer in the office and on their computer in the car, so that it doesn't cost us extra for the license. With that being said, staff is recommending to authorize the city manager to purchase the Microsoft 365 platform, not to exceed $56,894.17. That will be dispersed over 3 CIP agenda items, GLs, with the stormwater and the water and sewer and the general fund. And the other staff recommendation is for the to authorize the city manager to sign an agreement with Client First Technology Consulting Services to assist with this implementation and migration to 365 in an amount not to exceed $37,675, subject to final city attorney review on both of them.
Thank you, Don. We'll start at home. Councilmember Machado.
Thank you, Don, for the presentation. I'm happy to hear that the city continues to move forward in the technology aspect also. With 365, that will allow the city to also in the future use SharePoint online, Microsoft Teams, a lot of agencies are using now, and it's so useful for teamwork and remote. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Javed.
What is there a subscription fee to use 365?
Yes, there is. That's the price of the license, which we have up here at the $56,894.
Right, so that's annually?
Yes, it is. That's for 251 licenses.
Now, this also, does it allow you to, does it have a cloud function, 365? I'm not familiar with this software.
Yes, 365 is a cloud solution. We put our exchange up to the cloud, where it'd be better at a mobile, and it has better response time, better backing up than on our site. Also, it comes with several other, as we were talking about a minute ago, as it has SharePoint, which we'll probably get into the following year, which will be putting more data into the cloud for sharing. Teams is like GoToMeeting that comes with it for us to use as staff. So it's moving stuff to the cloud is what we're working on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks.
I know, but I need to have it.
No questions, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing.
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Shoemaker.
I just was interested why it costs so much. It's almost $227 per user. Why is the software so expensive for each user?
I wish I could tell you why all software is so expensive, but we get a lot with this software. So we're getting the full Outlook suite that we can install 5 times per user on any software, on any of the computers they have to use. That's phones, that's tablets, that's computers, that's laptops that they use. Whereas before, if you only have one license, you only get to put it on one piece of equipment. Also with that, it's being stored on the cloud, which is not a free service. So all the email and all that will be stored on the cloud. Also, we have Teams, like I said, which is like GoToMeeting. So actually, we probably wouldn't need GoToMeeting after this next year, and then everyone would have a license to it to work together. You have SharePoint, which is a cloud-based filing system type thing that work together with everyone that's on cloud. So it's not on one server. So if that server goes down on our site, we can't get to it. But being in the cloud, you have multiple servers. So if one goes down, it'll take its place. It also has trying to think of it, the back, there's another piece of software that comes with that gives every user a gig of space to keep files on. So they don't have to keep their files on their laptops or computers. So that way, if the laptop crashes, they have it on a different platform that's actually kind of like shared between the syncing between their laptop and on the cloud.
And for a go-to meeting, we only got, I believe, 3 accounts. Is that right, Keith? One for Chris, Himes, Keith, and myself. Everyone else has been using like a free Zoom, which like times them out. So they just haven't had the functionality. With this now, everyone will have. So we'll, like to Don's point, we'll be able to move on from go-to meeting because they'll be built into this. But every user will now have it, not just Chris, Keith, and myself.
Is there like an annual subscription cost beyond this initial cost?
Yeah, it's a yearly cost.
So this $226.67 is every year.
Yeah, you're talking about the per unit price.
No, I'm saying is what's the per year price? Is it this?
That's $56,000.
Yeah, but you're saying like, will the $226.67 per unit price go up from Microsoft each year?
Well, no. My base question is that a per year price?
Yeah.
Is the $226.67 is not just a one-time fee, or it's what is it good for one? It's for the software and 1 year of the subscription.
So for the 251 mailboxes and the use of it, it costs yearly $56,894. That is a yearly cost.
Let me ask again, is the $226 fee an annual fee? Or is only a portion of that for the year and part of it is the setup cost?
I'm trying to see what the $226.67 is a yearly fee that comes to a total of $56,894.17. That is the yearly cost.
So we don't get a break once all the software is installed. That's the price every year.
That's the price every year, yes.
So is that currently in our budget?
Yes.
At that level?
It's going to be in our budget going forward, yes.
Is it in the FY21 budget?
Yeah, this is in the FY21 budget, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, because I mean...
CIP for this year.
Well, I mean, what my point is it can't be a CIP issue because that price is not a one-time, that's not a one-time fee, that's an ongoing cost.
Well, we can shift if you don't feel comfortable paying, because it's such a big change we put in the CIP, but we can move that money from the CIP to the operating budget if you would prefer to show it that way. That's something we can do in the budget amendment.
What I was trying to understand was some of the $226 like a setup fee in terms of being a new user, and then some of that is just the yearly subscription, and so then it would decline. It's the year 2 or whatever would be.
It is per year, so you're actually right. I think from a technical, just because it was such a big change, and even though like every year we're buying licenses and stuff using the operating. It's just this was something we've been putting on the CIP for the longest time, and I had to keep pushing back. And this year we finally had it, and we could actually afford it. But during the budget amendment, I could move this dollar amount from the CIP to the operating and show what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be appropriate because it's an ongoing expense that doesn't go away. I mean, because this isn't my wheelhouse. That's why I was trying to understand if some of that was set up in terms of being a new user and you pay some to get in and then the subscription would be less. But that doesn't sound like that's the case then.
I will do that because you're right. It is more appropriate. Again, it was just we were trying to highlight this
Right.
This project is kind of like a big change for us. That's why we have in the CIP. But you're actually right. From a budgeting standpoint, it probably needs to be shifted over to the operating.
Right, because this is going to be an expense that we will
It's a recurring
incur.
cost.
Right, that's what I was trying to understand was in FY22, this number will be the same or probably higher, at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's depending on Microsoft, again, how they're going to increase their prices going forward. But again, most enterprises are now on Office 365, so kind of like the whole economy is at bay of Microsoft. But you're right, like we have this in that software capital line item, but we'll move it to the operating for the budget amendment.
Yeah,
So I'll make
I
sure to get
appreciate
that
that.
out. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I was just trying to understand whether it's going forward that this number would stay relatively the same, or is it less or more?
It will. I mean, again, it's going to depend on Microsoft. It also depends kind of, what kind of service as well. They sometimes have different tier pricing as well, but hopefully they don't increase. And I mean, this price is pretty similar to when I was looking at it in Lovettsville as well. So it actually hasn't grown that much, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have like a quote unquote contract with Microsoft, do we?
I think we're buying this, correct me if I'm wrong, Donald, through SHI?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Okay, and they essentially negotiate prices on behalf of customers that they're selling this to with Microsoft.
This plan is a government plan. It's not a regular plan, so it's for the government.
Okay.
Government.
So the SHI, they're basically acting like a broker,
Pretty
kind
much.
of, and then they're going out and getting a price, and they can offer it to all the people that subscribe through them at that reduced cost. Is
Yes.
that okay?
Don, anything else to add?
Third party, where a lot of people, you can't buy directly from some sources, and you go through them to get to it. Kind of like the Panasonic laptops we did last meeting. We have to go through another vendor. We can't buy them directly from Panasonic. We can talk to Panasonic, we can use their support, but to actually buy them, we have to go through a third party.
Yeah, because I think for Office 365, you can probably buy the business account directly, but not the government account.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Do you have further questions?
I was just trying to, just processing all the new information. So then we'll have the accounts, and everybody will have for multiple devices, and then the other part is for the client. First part of it is for what are they gonna do? Like
They're going to implement this. So this is, again, part of so many things that we're implementing right now. Remember when I presented kind of the amended CARES Act budget, we said we really needed additional kind of support. Some of it's from employee support, some of it's from contract support. This is kind of an example from one of the contract side support to get things implemented. Since we're implementing so many software, this is, again, another collaborative tool for remote working. I have a strong feeling if the trends continue, we're probably going to have to shut down again.
We're going to be remote
December,
working for a
January.
while.
Everyone's going to be working from remote again. So we're using them to speed up the process to get this thing implemented as soon as possible.
Is that because they physically have to come in and touch the machines and load the software? I mean, I don't know, it sounds weird, but just
Well, we'll be working with them, and they'll be leading the project since they've done this multiple times.
Okay.
And since we're not up to date to the latest Exchange server, so it's not like it's a simple moving them up to the cloud.
Yeah.
And they've done this multiple times.
And Don, I think you mentioned this point, but the current email server is getting to the end of its life cycle. Is that correct?
It's
already
let's
passed.
say we got our money's worth.
Okay. And so the issue is, like, if you notice on the weekends when email goes down and Don and his team have to come in, they're a small staff. One of our employees is about to go on maternal leave as well. If they have a breakout between, Don, God forbid, Don and Connor both have it at the same time, we don't have any IT support as well. So that if our email server goes down, we're in trouble. By moving things to the cloud, that service continues. We won't have a disruption in service.
And is that part of the fee of the $226 per user? We're effectively getting...
Yeah, you're getting cloud server. Yep.
Like the Microsoft will deal with it.
Exactly.
Like somebody that's on call at Microsoft in Redmond, Washington, or Bangalore, India, or wherever they do it, that they'll be able to dispatch people to, see what the issues are and bring the system back up.
Correct. Yeah, just like when you have issues, like if you have Gmail or Yahoo, and Yahoo email for some reason goes down a lot more. It's probably older, but sometimes they go down. That's like the company dealing with it. You don't have to deal with it as an enterprise.
So we're getting more on that support side.
Right.
Some of that money is so that we don't have to call people in on the weekends and at night.
Exactly.
Outside of regular 8:30 to 5 kind of thing.
Yep.
So we're paying for that level. Of
Yeah,
service.
that's built in the price from Microsoft, is that they're doing the cloud-based server hosting, and the businesses or governments no longer have to do that.
Wow. Okay. Well, that. Thank you. I mean, some of those questions made it more clear for me in terms of what we're actually getting for that price. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Is that it? Okay. Okay. There are 2 staff recommended motions with this.
If I could just point something out.
Yes.
Okay, for the acquisition or the license, because this is all being done under small procurement, and it's $56,000 a year. We have a $200,000 cap, so we can only do 3 years worth of the license. So it'll renew every year, but 3 years from now, we're gonna have to come back to you and get approval again. We want to continue. Just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Okay. That does not change the motions, though.
It doesn't.
Okay.
But I want that in the record. That this
Okay.
is a small procurement, and we can only go up to $200,000 per your recent approval. So
Okay.
we're limited to 3 years.
Okay. Sure enough. Thank you.
Does that mean that
RFP in 3 years then? If we
No,
want to do
we
like a
can go ahead
longer.
and just look at this again. It's still small procurement. If this still makes sense, it's still the best deal. We can just go ahead and renew licenses again.
But I was thinking if we want to do like a 5-year, we would have to then go do
Yeah.
the RFP and have
Right.
Gmail versus Microsoft kind of competing for, okay.
Right, yeah, since we're doing this small procurement, we're limited to the amount we can do.
So a future governing body will have to make some kind of affirmative decision to
Yes.
let's keep doing this or let's go with somebody else.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the issue is, I mean, their main competitor is Google, but they offer a lower price. I evaluated this when I was in Love's as well. It's not the same level of service. No one uses Google. I mean, barely anyone uses Google Docs. The Excel from Google is a mess. I would not want to do that to my finance department. PowerPoint, which I utilize, it's all different. So it doesn't mean, they can't come in and make their pitch, but most people end up going with Microsoft. But,
Well, not only that, but I mean, you've got to look at the security issues as well. So Google is known for, not being as secure.
Right.
Maybe you can
They are.
pay for it.
They are.
Yeah.
Some security.
yeah, that's probably why you're paying the lower rate.
Okay.
Right. Privacy and security are the 2 issues I'm concerned about. And that's something we'll be looking at with this agreement as well. We'll move forward with the license agreement. So we haven't reviewed it yet, other than just a very preliminary matter that Don's looking into. But once we dig into it, those are the things we'll be looking for.
Especially because we have attorney-client privileged and closed session things that sometimes come across.
Privilege issues, yeah.
Right.
And, we also have sensitive information. Since the treasurer and the commissioner use our email system, we can make sure that anything they're sending out is protected as well.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Thank you. First recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign the necessary contractual documents to purchase the Microsoft Office 365 platform at a cost not to exceed $56,894.17 as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
May I ask a question?
Do we have a, oh, okay, well, let's have a motion and a second.
Well, it's a question on the motion because there's a
Okay.
different number in the narrative than there is on the staff recommendation. I'm just confirming that we have the correct number because the other number is 56,895.
I saw that.
And that's before we make the motion. I wanted to get a confirmation.
And I think Don
My errors.
referenced the 894 when he was speaking.
It is 894.
Okay, that was it.
And that could be my error again.
And I would also recommend for a 3-year period as well. I'm sorry, we do need to put that in the
Okay,
motion.
okay.
Since it's
You,
the city manager's
you sent me this motion, Dean.
did, and I wasn't aware that it was, gonna be
Okay,
used every year
okay.
until
So where would you like that inserted?
56,874 per year, 3 years.
For a 3-year period as presented, subject to final review by city attorney. Okay, okay.
I'll move the amended motion.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The second staff recommended motion is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign an agreement with Client First Technology Consulting, LLC, to assist in the implementation of and migration to the Microsoft Office 365 platform at a cost not to exceed $37,675, using funding from the CARES Act as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed and abstained?
One abstain.
One abstention from Vice Mayor Banks. Motion passes. Thank you. And thank you very much, Don.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, City Attorney, Subordination, Attornment, and Non-Disclosure Agreement for DSS offices.
So this one and the next one have to do with Lot 1B that is over in the second, or phase 2 of the city center. This is the building located on Lot 1B is the one that the city rents the top floor for its Department of Social Services. So this one here has to do with the lease that we have. On the lease we have with the 100 Nadia LLC, which is the landlord, says that we will attorn to any future owner if for some reason it's sold. This agreement here is being requested by the lender because the owner is refinancing. So even though we have that in the lease, the lender wants something additional, just to make sure that they have the warm and fuzzy. So if they go and they lend the money, the owner defaults, then they can come and say, okay, we have this agreement, we're trying to get someone else to come in and buy this from us. This basically says that, we will start paying the rent to them once they agree to honor all the conditions of the lease. We kind of went back and forth. The standard version of this agreement has language in it that was in conflict with our lease. So this is now consistent with the terms that we've already negotiated with the landlord. And again, so if you look through here, there's a term of the new owner. The new owner is prospective. That's not right now. That's in case the bank has to foreclose on the loan and they want to sell it. Okay, so that new owner can look at this and say, okay, this is what I need to do to get that rent money. So that's pretty much what this is about. It's not doing anything above and beyond what we already had in the lease, other than the language we have in the lease just says that we have to attorn to the new owner, which just means that we treat them as the landlord from that point on. The thing in here that's kind of adds a little piece to that is if we ever decide we want to amend the lease, we have to also notify the lender, because that could affect the terms of their loan. It's kind of like when you have a mortgage, you're not allowed to do things to your property that might decrease the value of it. Same thing here. You can't amend the lease in a way, since the lease itself is the value that they get from this. We can't amend it in such a way as to decrease the revenue stream that we look forward to. So we couldn't suddenly revise the lease to decrease the rent that we pay every year, because obviously then that becomes less desirable for a new purchaser, because they're not going to get that rent money. So we have to give the same notice that we have to give notice to the lender. We also have to give notice if the current landlord is in default of the lease. We have to give the lender notice at the same time, and then give them the same 10 days that we have in the lease also for the landlord. So we're basically adding the lender into this lease is what we're doing for notification purposes.
Okay.
And agreeing that if they have to foreclose and sell it to another new purchaser, a new owner, that this lease will transfer over and the new owner can then step into the shoes of the landlord. So hopefully I didn't confuse that too much.
No, that was a good explanation. That was good, particularly for residents watching from home. So that was good. Thank you. Let's start with questions at home. Councilmember Machado?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
Hey, Dean, I've got a question. What's the time, or how many days notice do we have to give the landlord, if we want to make a change or amendment to our lease or even get out of our lease?
Well, there's no time frame for that that's built into it because the lease doesn't anticipate that. The lease anticipates us through the term, which I believe is 20 years. I don't remember the exact number. 20 years. 20 years. So for us to get out of it, if, say for instance, the governing body decided not to appropriate funds for it. Well, now we have a problem because we don't have money. So then we're basically in default of the agreement. So we don't have something in there about we give notice we're going to terminate. The termination is we're in default. As far as amending it, we just notify them we want to amend it, and then if they agree, then the amendment would require two parties to agree. And now with this, also the lender to agree. So there's no time that we give them. It's just a matter of whether or not we're going to do it. Now, for the lender, if we're going to make an amendment to the agreement, we have to notify the lender, and the lender has to give their consent beforehand, because they got to make sure it's not going to diminish the value of the lease.
And even with the maintenance of the building itself, I mean, I know it's a new structure that we have, but over time, over 20 years, there's going to be repairs that need to be made.
Well, that's dealt with in the lease. Okay, so the landlord's responsible for the physical condition of the building. We're obviously responsible for anything that we add to it and that we're using solely, and that's dealt with in the lease also. This termination agreement, all it does is basically say that whatever we've agreed to in the lease prior is effectively going to transfer to the new owner. So we don't change the lease by this at all. We're just essentially adding the new owner and the lender as a party to any changes and any defaults, and then also the new owner is listed in here as what the conditions are for the new owners to basically step into the shoes of the landlord. And they are essentially that they have to agree to accept all the responsibilities in writing.
Okay, thanks. I thought the lender, I thought since we're adding a third party, the terms are going to change, but.
No, we're not really adding a third party to the lease. We're basically agreeing that we're kind of adding something outside of it, that we're agreeing to notify the lender just because the lender has an interest in this lease now. And they want to make sure that we're not somehow doing something that's going to diminish the value. Because they have to have some certainties, when they're doing this. There's probably going to be an assignment, typically when there's actual sale, there's assignment of rent and stuff that goes down as well. That's separate from the lease. Again, that's something between the lender and the landlord.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does satisfy your question, Vice Mayor Banks?
Yeah, my
Okay.
concerns, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Councilmember Shoemaker? No questions? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the subordination, attornment, and non-disturbance agreement as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. And then moving on to release of grantor's repurchase right for Lot 1B.
When the parcel, again, Lot 1B is part of a larger parcel that the city sold to EPI 2 at the time, was the purchaser. EPI 2 since subdivided it and then sold it to various entities. 100 Nadia LLC is the entity that bought Lot 1B. Now, the original deed that conveyed all the parcels that were later subdivided into 1A, 1B, and 1C had a repurchase right in there, grantor's repurchase right, that said if any portion of the property was not developed per the terms that they're listed in there within 5 years from the date of the sale, then the city would have 60 days to notify them that the owner that we were purchasing or repurchasing it. Now, you may remember when that time came, the governing body made a decision not to pursue that, and therefore, 60 days later, those repurchase rights expired. We then agreed, or the governing body agreed to an agreement, or a release to be recorded in the land records for Lot 1C. That's the vacant piece up there. And basically it just said that the repurchase rights have expired. Now Lot 1B, because that it's still in the chain of title for Lot 1B, they're asking for a similar release to be recorded in the land records as well. And it's basically just to remove the cloud of the title. So it's not, again, it's not doing anything more than just stating what has already occurred. And this has been requested also, again, at the last minute, because they're trying to close this week. So hopefully, are there any questions? I mean, I don't know if that's a good explanation or not.
Councilmember Machado?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker? No questions. Okay. And I don't have any questions. So staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the release of grantor's repurchase right for Lot 1B as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Okay, next, solid waste contract amendment.
That one's Calvin.
Is it Calvin?
Good evening, Mayor Rochelle, Vice Mayor Banks, members of council, staff, citizens, and guests. Calvin Odell again, the Director of Community Development. I was approached by Park 170's property manager, Park 170 at City Center, approached by their property manager at the end of the summer about why they're required to be receiving services from Patriot Disposal. I explained the contractual arrangement and the fact that the city provides a solid waste management program to the entire city and all the residents of the city. But they expressed concerns that they think they could have more freedom to modify the services they receive and perhaps control their own destiny. So they'd asked the question if it would be possible for them to remove Park 170 at City Center from the agreement. Since this isn't the first time I've heard a question like this from an apartment complex or development in the city, I actually approached Patriot about doing a far more comprehensive amendment to the contract, one that would allow apartment complexes and the like to opt out of the city's program. We just didn't get there. There's a substantial capital investment cost involved. And for Patriot, for example, the point at Park Station, they just installed brand new compactors at the request of the subdivision. And that's a substantial investment for any company, 2 brand new compactors and all the appurtenances and wiring associated with it. So if they were to do that and then Point was to decide 3 months down the road that they didn't want to be a part of the contract anymore, Patriot would be eating that capital investment. So there were some complicated terms involved in getting a more comprehensive amendment before you in a hurry, but I did want to make sure that I accommodated Park 170 at City Center's request. So I'm proposing a one-off amendment essentially just to remove Park 170 at City Center. At that facility, Patriot doesn't have any new equipment. Their capital losses aren't as substantial to remove this subdivision from our agreement. But there are some impacts. Basically, in running the math, it charges us about $2,700 a year, $2,700 a month to service Park 170 at City Center. We collect from them $3,387. So that leaves a delta of $677 per month that we lose in revenue by this route. Now, overall, it's a 0.76% impact on our annual revenues. And since this wouldn't be happening until the end of the year, it would only represent about a $4,000 impact to our revenue stream in our solid waste enterprise fund this year. And then at the end of the year, we'd have to visit whether or not we want to make up that money by doing an actual solid or refuse and recycling fee increase for the following year. However, I did want to bring this before the governing body. I have been getting questioned about this since late summer, and we got an initial letter from Park 170, the letter that's referenced in the amendment before you, that had some contractual mix-ups. I'm actually in receipt of the follow-up letter that came in at 8 o'clock this evening while we were in session. So I think everything is in place. Dean will, of course, have to review the new letter Park 170 officially requesting out. But this amendment would remove Park 170 from the city solid waste management agreement with Patriot Disposal. And they would have to have their equipment off-site by December 31st. This would allow Park 170 to pursue their own waste or refuse and recycling services outside of the city. And we'll still be working in the background to perhaps develop a more comprehensive and thorough way of removing facilities if they ask. But we are looking at a potential budget impact for this year of $4,000 in lost revenue from the Refuse and Recycling Enterprise Fund.
Thank you, Calvin. When Park 170 says that they want more freedom to modify the agreement and control their own destiny, what exactly do they mean by that?
I think they were dissatisfied with the performance of our contractor on a couple different occasions, and then they basically, I think they went shopping because they're used to that, and wherever else they have apartment complexes, they're used to having the freedom to shop around, and I think their initial indication is that they might be able to get a better price. So I think that's kind of clear that that's a possibility just from the numbers I presented to you. If we're billing them almost $3,400 a month, and Patriot's only charging us $2,700 a month, there may be some inequities in our curbside versus dumpster service rates that we need to look into. But they just feel like they can do better on their own. And they're used to that in other jurisdictions. I don't think this was the first time the property manager at Park 170 had ever been in a apartment complex where she was, confined to a city contract. So I don't really have any opinion on that one way or the other than to say that I did want to bring the request before the body and make sure that we were giving them the opportunity they sought. But this is what Park 170 wants. They have sent a letter saying that this is what they want, and Patriot is willing to cooperate with the amendment.
We'll start with our folks at home. Councilmember Machado, questions?
No question. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
Yes. So if they don't find a better deal, are they able to remain in their contract?
So there's only a year and 3 months left on the maximum terms under this agreement with Patriot. It's highly unlikely that Park 170 will want back in. In the initial discussions with Patriot on the issue, their concern was, of course, these apartment complexes might want to come back in. We don't want to have to find a place to store all this equipment or move it to another location. And then when an apartment complex decides they want to come back in, we've got to then make another capital investment to serve them. So we had tried to do some capital investment and capital cost recovery worksheets that would make sure that, everything was spelled out ahead of time and how they'd be able to charge us and any costs that they would be entitled to. We just couldn't get it done in time. There's a lot more cost than we were anticipating, but currently by our ordinance, we're required to offer this service to our residents. So if Park 170 wanted to come back in and say 6 months, we would have to reopen this discussion with Patriot and try to get an amendment to the contract to let them back in.
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
I don't support this. I think it's for the reason that we have twofold economies of scale that we're getting for cost, as well as economies of scale that we're getting for our revenue. And this, although I'm all for self-determination and pursuing your destiny and freedom, it really changes things for the city in terms of the cost and revenue, as I just mentioned, as well as what you mentioned, Calvin, in terms of if Park 170 does not find a solid waste service, then they come back to us, and then we have to, again, pay for the capital. So I think that it's best, I understand they want to pursue other options, but for certain services, whether it's solid waste or even water, especially for our size of our city, we need everyone on board. And like you said, Calvin would have to make up the revenue as well as the cost and shift things around. And don't forget, we're doing this during a pandemic, which we're experiencing the beginning of a second wave, so we don't know the effects to our revenue is going to have. So if there's any way we can reject the request and say, hey, we appreciate you trying to pursue other options. However, it's best to stick with the city. Then, I'm for that. That's all.
Did you want to comment on that, Calvin?
I completely agree. I will add, some more details of the conversations I've had with Patriot on the issue. They're not in denial that Park 170 may initially find better rates. What Patriot has warned the city about, their concerns about apartment complexes wanting to come back into the contract is that we have a pretty solid contract with maximum rate increases. And our rate increases equate out to maxed out at about 8% per year. These apartment complexes on their own won't have those kind of controls in their contract. And Sean told me with some certainty that, it's pretty common for a waste company to hit an apartment complex with like a 15% fee increase on the second or third year or something like that. So it's, he feels as though it's a bit of an insult to one out of his services. So of course he's going to make arguments saying that, that they're not going to find that much better of a deal and they're going to get hurt in the years coming. But there's only a year and 3 months left in this agreement, so I think he feels a certain level of comfort that this complex may not come crawling back within our existing contract terms. But he did have substantial concerns about other subdivisions and his capital investments in those subdivisions and what it would mean for his business if these apartment complexes were just deciding to bounce back and forth. And, the grass is always greener on the other side until you get hit with those rate increases.
Yeah, if I could just add, to Preston's point, I think that's probably the best point is the economies of scale. If the contract with Patriot's going to expire in a year and a half and we have to go back out and bid, we need to have all hands on deck to make sure we have a competitive offering. And then number two, to answer your question, Preston, we're just looking for a yay or nay from the governing body because that's the final. It's just staff, especially Calvin's just been, constantly, asked the question from Park 170. So once you all make the determination, that's it. And so we can relay that back to them.
Okay. Calvin, you made a great point earlier on, and that is that Park 170, if they do get a contract, they'll probably pass that cost on to the renters, our citizens. And it'll be a high cost. So we're looking out for the citizens of Park 170 as well. It's not just our economies of scale, but our cost and revenue. So, I mean, I think overall, I think it's just a bad deal to try to pursue it on your own.
Well, if I could just point something out as well, I mean, it's a little bit awkward to be calling out one specific apartment complex for special treatment. It might be a better idea to look at this and perhaps amend our city code to provide that, you know, individual apartment complexes or even HOAs can provide for their own trash collection if you guys desire that. The big problem is we have areas of the city without even such organization, and you don't want individual homeowners negotiating. And we looked at this a few years ago, and the thought of having 3, 4, 5 different trash collection companies running their trucks up along city streets for various residents was really kind of a little bit of a daunting thought. So the idea is that we certainly want to have the trash collection for the individual single-family dwellings. I don't know if you'd be willing to look into something for apartment complexes or not, but this is something that's kind of outside the contract. We already have a contract, as Calvin says, we have a little over a year remaining for the maximum length of the contract. So we're going to have to go out with an RFP in the next year anyway for a replacement contract. If you guys want to then allow for apartment complexes to opt out that time, it would make sense, because then we're getting a competitive pricing based upon what we're asking them to do. To the city manager's point, you know, we have economies of scale built into this. Now, the fact that Patriot is willing to do this, it tells me that maybe the economies of scale for that particular development, you know, aren't there. And I think the big thing is the capital expense. And correct me if I'm wrong, Calvin, but the capital cost for the park 170, they've already eaten that cost. They're kind of like end of the life of those capital units, right? So they're not looking at any loss by allowing Park 170 out, but other apartment complexes might have newer equipment. They still haven't gotten a return on their investment in those complexes. So it would not make sense to allow everyone to opt out. So whether or not you allow Park 170 to do it, I think you ought to consider in the future, since Park 170 is clearly going to want to stay out and not be a part of the city's process. And the fact that, as Calvin pointed out, if they change their mind, we have to go through hurdles after we've already had a competitive bid and a contract awarded. We'd have to jump through some hurdles figuring out how to do that. So we have to build that into the contract as well. So, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't approve this, but I'm just saying it causes a little bit of a problem.
I'm concerned that this would set a precedent.
Well, it would.
Yeah.
And it does give one particular apartment complex special treatment.
Right.
And it does, you know, it doesn't look like it's going to affect the overall economies of scale that we have built into our contract. So that's one good bit of news. But if you do approve this, I think you're going to have to go ahead and allow for other complexes to opt out as well.
And I'm not comfortable with that. Vice Mayor Banks, do you have a follow-up or anything before we move on?
I'm fine, thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing?
Yeah, I was just going to say I oppose this because I think it's bad form to allow one complex out of the agreement and not all. So I can't support this.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Yeah, I think I'd echo the points that Councilmember Mensing, Councilmember Banks made. And also, it's a simplicity thing. Do we really want staff having to do this over and over and over again, or having them come back and then trying to figure out the capital costs? And, you know, somebody got to, you know, I think what's going to happen, maybe to your point that you made, Laszlo, was that, you know, a lot of these companies will lowball an estimate to get business, and then the rates will increase in out years because they want to lowball the estimate coming in because they want to undercut somebody to get some more business. And once they've got them, then they're going to increase the rates. And so then you're going to have residents coming to us saying, do something, and we're going to say, we don't control that anymore. And so, you know, I think simplicity, I mean, among all the other arguments, and I also agree with, some of it's just simplicity. If you're a resident in this city, you have city trash. I mean, I think it's the simplicity argument is that, oh no, if you live in this development, you've got this company and their days are on this day. And then if you're in this development, you're on city trash. And if you're in this development, you're on another company and you have to go through your HOA I mean, that's just a hot mess. And, as well as that Patriot is investing in our city in the transfer station. I mean, that's a secondary issue we're their trash on Wednesdays, so to speak, because the whole city's on trash on one day. And, they chose us to invest in our city for the transfer station. And so with less volume, does that put that at risk? Does that put the recycling side of that at risk is what we wanted, right? But that was not on the front end of that contract. This could put the risk of not getting the recycling piece in their investment, because they may say, well, we now have significantly less, revenue from the city because that contract's now not nearly as big. So we've now lost X percent or X amount of the business, So, I mean, in addition to what Councilmember Mensing and Councilmember Banks and others have said, I can't support this. I think it's, and I think the other goal that we didn't say is, we have the health and safety priority of the citizens, and when I realize the commercial pieces, they have their own, but we have the ultimate responsibility in the city to be in charge of the health and safety and welfare of our citizens, and making sure that we have efficient and safe trash collection is an important environmental and health standard that we ensure that our contractors live up to.
I think what's at work here is the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. And I don't think they have an appreciation for the good pricing that Patriot provides. Every time we've gone out to bid, Patriot has come in a couple $100,000 less than the next lowest bidder. So
absolutely.
First of all, I question whether they're going to be able to find a lower price. And second of all, I just don't support this because I don't agree with setting a precedent that could start a stampede. So that wasn't really a question, but okay. So I think we're ready. Calvin, did you have something to say?
That was Hasib.
That was Hasib.
Oh, Hasib. Oh, I'm sorry. You sounded just like Calvin for a moment.
Yeah. I just wanted to point out that if they go get other bids from other vendors and contractors, they might be able to get a competitive price, right? Paying cheaper than what they're paying right now. And that savings will go along with the renter's rent. So, I mean, just to make a point, I mean, if we're not gonna, I understand we can open up the precedent for other apartment buildings. At the same time, I mean, if we want to have businesses come in our city to have that edge of freedom and not monopolize on their, on our situation, then we need to be open-minded and be able to explore that option of maybe just apartment complexes, giving them the flexibility of looking at other contractors. It's all about making, I guess, because we're charging one price, right? If they have 3-4 bids, their price is going to go lower on their trash collection. So essentially, it's not going to increase rent prices, because they're going to get a lower rate. And I guess also the accountability, I think what Shoemaker was saying, that, we won't have the accountability aspect of it if a resident complains about the service, but, that will fall on the apartment complex instead of the city. No.
Yeah.
Yes, Councilmember Shoemaker?
I wanted to just something I think somebody else said that maybe during this next, maybe the next budget season for, I guess it would be for FY22, that we take a look at what we're charging in terms of like condos and apartments for dumpster service and also for single family, maybe we need to adjust it a little bit and, take 25, I'm going to make up a number, 25 cents off of the condo rate or for dumpster rate, and maybe add a little bit on the single family to kind of readjust internally to us what we're charging. Maybe the cost and the what we're charging, maybe there needs to be a slightly closer spread.
Well, yeah, that's one of my points. Is that if we're charging higher, then why would we have those businesses pay more, basically? Right? We're basically trapping them in this contract and paying whatever the fees we are setting.
Yeah. So just to clarify, though,
I'm not saying to cut. I'm not saying to cut the contract. I'm saying is for us what we are charging. Yeah. That we need to make maybe some little tweaks to what the formula is. Yeah. Because maybe we're and things change over time, and we set the rates at one point a long time ago, and then they've costs and however have changed. Maybe there's a small way we can adjust in the next
reevaluation,
right,
based on what's fair.
Right, and based on maybe actual cost is now a little bit different than what we projected. When you go into a contract, you project what it's going to be, and maybe it's changed a little bit in those years in between.
So we can look at the mix in terms of dumpsters versus the single family and see if there is you're always going to make a little bit more because we have overhead for these enterprise funds as well. Right. But we can look and see what the difference is in terms of the overhead amount for dumpsters versus single family versus townhome, and see if it needs to align more equitably across all of those. So we can look at that. But just for businesses, so just to clarify, for commercial properties, they do have their own separate. So this doesn't really have much to do with kind of being business friendly. Most of the businesses that will come in will have their own trash collection, but property managers are kind of a business as well for apartments, and so they're a little bit different. But certainly for other businesses, they'll have their own trash collection.
All right.
Well, there's.
I mean, that doesn't make sense for if someone's dissatisfied of service to keep them in the contract. That's just my opinion.
I guess the issue is many of our residents could be dissatisfied from, single family. They'd want to negotiate their own. And to Dean's point, that just becomes a complicated mess if you allow every single resident who's dissatisfied to negotiate their own. And then you just have a bunch of trash companies showing up to do that. So
that's a
we're
safety
gonna have
issue.
Different verbiage without opening it up to the whole residents of Manassas Park, right? Apartment complexes are different than single family.
They are. It's just
so you're not going to have a broad wording in the contract saying if we change this for one apartment, now we have to change it for every single family house.
No, I'm just making the point.
Do that.
Yeah, if we're making the rationale because of dissatisfaction in service, well, if I'm a townhome or condo or single family owner and I'm dissatisfied, well, why are they letting apartments do that and not us? I'm just saying the rationale can be picked apart by other residents who may make the same claim as well. And I see we can clearly draw lines. Maybe it's just apartment complexes, but we'd have to define the reasons why we're allowing those residents to do it collectively versus not allow other ones. We'd have to have a good rationale for why that is.
Right. And as well as, in townhouses, we pay the single family rate, but we don't get single family service because we don't get to put our trash cans at each individual unit. We have to, so I'm just saying this could be a mess because I can make the claim that in our neighborhood, we have 8 spots for collection for 72 units. So they get to pull up to each spot and they get to do 8 to 10 cans at each site, but we pay the single family rate. We've never gotten a break. So that's why I think that we're better if we just leave it as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to point one other thing out. So if we set a precedent by allowing Park 170 out and another apartment complex wants out, we can't force Patriot to amend the contract for that new apartment complex. Okay, because the agreement requires both parties to amend it. Now, if we had come to you with an amendment that said that any apartment complex could opt out, by the way, Park 170 wants to, I wouldn't really have a big concern. other than setting yourself up for the future RFP. But this here, just allowing one to do it and not having an amendment to the agreement that allows all of them to do it could set us up for a problem. So again, we had planned on having an amendment come to you that would have allowed, what I had said, but it got a little bit complicated and last minute decision was made just to bring Part 170 forward because they were being very adamant about it.
Okay. Well, the recommended staff motion is as follows. That the governing body approve the Second Amendment to Solid Waste Collection and Disposal Services Agreement as presented, subject to receipt of a request from Park 170 at City Center to be removed from the list of communities receiving solid waste collection and disposal services from Patriot Disposal Incorporated, and subject to final review by city attorney. Do we have a motion?
I so move.
Do we have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Okay, thank you. Okay, manager's report.
Good evening, everybody. Before I go into my presentation, I'm going to present on the CARES Act. But before I do that, I'm going to hand it off to Chris Himes, who will report via GoToMeeting, just to give you all an update on the website, what it looks like, the progress of the website, as well, so you can take some initial looks at that. So let me go ahead and share that screen. Or make Chris the presenter.
Hey, Laszlo, I'm standing by. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm going to make you the presenter right now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Well, while that's coming up, good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. Just kind of wanted, Jimmy Laszlo asked me to kind of show kind of where we're at right now. And so you can think about the implementation of the website as a series of phases. We're pretty much at the end of kind of the first phase, which is the design and concept phase. So what we're going to go over tonight is essentially the kind of design concepts for the templates for the city kind of homepage, an example of a city interior page, departmental kind of landing page, department interior page, and then a couple of example pages as well. But just as an FYI, none of these are functional screens. They're just mock-ups. So you won't be able to kind of click or go into anything. But the goal is just to kind of show you what we were thinking when we were kind of laying out all the different functionalities and all the different kind of what we wanted for the future applications as well. And Laszlo, have you made me presenter yet? I still don't have the ability.
You try now? Let me try again. Yeah, it's saying you're the presenter right now. Looks like you. Still there, Chris?
Apparently it's not there.
Here, try it one more time, Laszlo.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
There was two Chris Himes, I just realized that, and I made the other one.
That's right, yeah. I had my cell phone on because the speaker is a little bit better, but if this is working, people can hear me pretty well, then that should work out.
Okay, now we can see.
Okay, great.
Oh, sorry. Hold on. Got through here.
All right.
There we go.
All right, so I can, all right, great. So, all right, no, we'll go with the first page here. So, and this is just kind of a revised thing saying basically the same thing I just talked about. This is not a functional, it's just a design layout. But the kind of goal we were going for was more of a blend between modern and traditional. So we pulled, and when I say we, I mean myself and Lauren Luck, the Parks and Recreation Marketing Manager. I used a lot of her expertise in the marketing space to understand kind of just branding, design, concepts, layouts, because I don't have a lot of experience with that. And together, we researched a bunch of different websites, utilizing revised templates, and kind of pulled together a design concept, which we were looking for more of a clean, kind of modern aesthetic, what we're looking at. So what you're looking at here is the kind of main city homepage landing spot. This kind of big image is known as kind of like called the hero image. For the future state, we're going to be utilizing like a dynamic image. You know, if you take like an iPhone image and it has like that live version for about 3 to 4 seconds, we're going to have like a scrolling live image set from different places around the city. So that'll be the goal right here. So, you know, what you're seeing right here is not necessarily what's going to be on the actual image today, but they can't really do a mock-up of a live image. But the key part was just having kind of a very clean concept. You let the logo up in the upper left-hand corner, and the centralized search function, which, I'm sorry, can everybody, I'm getting interference.
Yeah, we can hear you, and we can still see.
Okay, great. Sorry. I thought I heard somebody trying to ask a question, but you come in here and you want to type parking, you know, it'll link to a kind of search feed that has everything that we've ever put in any kind of agenda or everywhere it's listed in the city page about parking. So it'll just kind of like land on almost like an internet search results. What you'll see here, this kind of green pop-up button in your bar, this is our kind of alerts notifications. So let's say if Keith posts a COVID update, or let's say the perfect example was the water damage to the culvert for the road infrastructure, you know, we would be able to, on the back end, you know, populate that pop-up notification that would land to a page that you can click in and get that quick information, as well as just kind of having the daily weather on there. We thought that was a cool add-on as well. And then the main thing here that we're always trying to, that we were trying to get was just this is called the action item bar. And these are kind of the main functional applications that we want people to engage with us as a city. So you'll see the pay, apply, alert, report, and future state will be GIS with all of our kind of online maps that we'll have available for citizens to go into. And all of these will link to everything that you can apply for payment, which will, in this case, map to our kind of single source payment platform, applications, you name it, all the different types of applications in the city. Alerts, you know, this is kind of like a managed EOC space. So Keith will be managing all the different types of ways that will have alerts pop up and the ways that you can also as a citizen sign up for them and then report any kind of community maintenance type issues, one-type reports or anything like that.
Before you scroll down, so you see on the top right there, everyone where it says translate. So when we spoke to Revise, they said it should be able to translate many of the things like in Spanish. So our Spanish speaking residents should now be able to get a lot of their information in Spanish as well. So that was a cool function. And Chris has already pointed this out. I just wanted to reiterate that pay button. Try to find the payment portal right now on the current website compared to just going on here and clicking it. This is just a much more user-friendly experience for our residents. Go ahead, Chris.
I thought there was a language button on the current website.
This will be pared down.
There's a language button on the. Yeah, it did because I accidentally pressed it.
Yeah, which language did you end up in?
It was some obscure Latvian language.
A lot of websites have that in the upper right-hand corner. It's just more of like the way that they can kind of make it front and center. And
yeah.
If you look at this kind of overall design layout, the reason this makes it a modern page, you can see multiple functionalities in kind of a desktop view. The mobile view will be kind of the same, except you'll see pretty much just kind of one action item at a time, and you can just kind of arrow to the right to get to all the different functionalities. But the goal for the desktop was to kind of section off the website into chunks. So this would be kind of your main view of everything that you might possibly need to come to the city right off in one view. And that's what we wanted to concentrate on. That's what makes it more of a traditional feel, but with a modern aesthetic. Scrolling down, this is just kind of the managed announcement section. This is what Keith primarily manages right now. Not much kind of functional difference, just the fact that these kind of scroll based off of the next available. And then when they kind of get replaced, they just go to the news feed, which is on the managed page behind this. And then of course an easy email sign up, which we do not have currently. So that'll be a nice way for people to just type in their email address and they can basically subscribe to our announcements feed. Another thing that'll be front and center on the site is just our managed calendar space for our public events and meetings. Essentially is these will have all of the, you can see kind of these hyperlinked dates on here. You'll be able to hover your mouse over them, and it'll pop up like a little pop-up window that'll show kind of some loose information, some high level about the event. And this will be primarily different types of calendars, one being public meetings, obviously body sessions, and also commission meetings. And then city events primarily be all like the upcoming Christmas events, other kind of holiday events, or anything that we have going on in the city. And anytime you scroll onto one of these, click it to kind of manage that calendar, the subsequent right-hand side here will change accordingly to show the next 4 available events. And then just kind of a connection point, we're still kind of understanding whether or not we want to pull a bunch of social media related applications, embed them right here, or we want to leave it clean and then have that available to click through into the kind of managed social media communication page that we'll have set up. And then at the very bottom, you have the kind of, this is like a standardized navigation footer that's on pretty much every single page. The entire city wanted to keep it standardized, just to have everybody kind of have common links when they scroll down too far to go back to where they want to go. So it's like a common navigation point. So that is kind of the home page. We can go into just some examples of the interior pages. So for every department, you know, there's kind of the line departments, if you can think of, finance, HR. A lot of us, we won't have kind of departmental pages. We'll have our own spaces here. This would be an example of like if you wanted to have the finance page, and this would be all of like, you know, budget, CAFR information, anything that we want to have, performance metrics, so on and so forth. This is an example of what an interior page would look like that have that set up, if that makes sense. But everything else is pretty much the same. Interior pages are more of a reflection of the actual home page. Moving on to the departmental pages, we use fire and rescue in this case as an example, but this would be an example of kind of the mainline departments, the ones that have services. So you can think of fire, rescue, PD, you know, community development, social services, and the parks and recreation. They would have this as kind of their formatted departmental page. We wanted to pull the city badges or logos for all those departments in to give it like a nice customized feel, as well as their kind of basic information for contact information. You'd be surprised how many people don't call the right number right now. And then similar in scope, but they'll have different navigation menus for kind of the top here, and the kind of action items will be more specific to the individual departments, and they'll have a managed space behind this. And then as you can see, when you land on the department pages, the search bar function goes away, which is common for the what Revise does for the departmental pages. Similar kind of concept for the city announcements, for departmental announcements that they'll be managing themselves, and then a social media kind of sign up space for the departmental specific social media accounts that they'll have. But all in all, it'll be kind of similar. We wanted to keep a very standardized feel for all departments, which we don't have today. We wanted everyone to kind of be in the same design and concept throughout the entire city to really kind of have kind of a one standardized approach to everything. And then as you look at the fire inner page, similar to the home city inner pages, it's pretty much the exact same design concept layout. Not much has changed.
Chris,
and last but not, we wanted to get some mock-ups of what a like a governing body live session might look like. So you would go to like the governing body section here. So for today's meeting, you would have gone to that front end calendar. You would see on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, there's a meeting, and you would click a link, you know, and it would land on this kind of live space for the page. So you can imagine this image being a live YouTube image. It would just click play, and we would also have a live comment section that they could log in and provide scrolling commentary per person that we would be able to monitor throughout the meeting. And then below that, we would have basically year by year archival rundown of all the minutes for each type of session. So this would be repeatable for like commissions, committees, and the governing body as well. So everybody would have their own space with their managed live feed and their comment section and agenda meeting minutes.
And that's leveraging YouTube, so it's just embedding YouTube, like our YouTube page, into our website.
Okay.
Correct.
You can watch it now.
It's just pulling it forward. It's what we're doing today, but it's all going to be posted on our website.
Okay.
And then lastly, we wanted to kind of show an example of a fillable form. So Revise likes to pride themselves that they can do basically any type of fillable form or application that you need to kind of build out. So they always show the example of their dog license application. But this is any department that has some sort of front-facing application that a citizen needs to build out. This is kind of what that experience would look like. In this case, a dog license application, but you can think of this as like, it could be a job application or like a personal property or whatever you want to sign up for online. We would have that feed here. We need to attach a payment form. We would have that payment kind of link here at the bottom. You would shopping cart out to our Virginia Interactive Posted Payment Portal. They can make the payment. The good part out of this is sends all the information to our finance teams and our staff. And then it also sends a notification back to the user that everything's been processed and is ready to go. So, or if it's currently in review or whatnot. So you get that kind of step-by-step understanding, transparency of how your application is progressing as it makes its way through staff departments, especially if it's like a multi-departmental application as well. And we build out those workflows as we build these out on the actual website and on the back end. But that's what this experience would look like as you go in there. So no longer you have just kind of an embedded PDF that you click into, have to fill out, scan, and submit somewhere else into like an email account. It's a little more transparent now.
Yes, this is one of the most important functions where, like, think of this as setting up your, utility registration for your water and sewer account, vehicle registration. We're going to try to do as many of our actual processes so our residents can do it on our website versus having to come to the city hall and do it.
Great.
Thank you, Chris.
That's where we're at right now. This is basically, we're at the final stages. So we'll be, once we submit this for moving on to the next phase, they'll be basically coding the functionalities and developing our CMS environment, our content management system. So they'll basically just be building out the entire back end of the web page. And once we have that up, the city will be building out the sitemap, the directory, how we want all of the wording to flow and all the different toolbars and all the different links from each individual kind of functionality. So that's going to be a pretty robust phase that we're moving into after this. But, this is just for, hey, I like this font, I like this color, I like this layout, I like that. So that's what we've just finished here. So
okay.
I'll leave it up for open commentary or anything, or if there's any inputs.
Chris, did I hear you correctly that there would be announcements on the homepage?
Yes, Mayor. If you go to this will be kind of the live feed of announcements that pop up.
Okay, so is there something you can click on and it will take you to a list of announcements that say go back 3-4 months?
Yes. So when you see all news here in the upper right-hand corner, you would just click on that and it would basically be all of the city announcements that we've had in the city, archived by year, month, you name it.
So a resident will be able to say to themselves, gee, I know there was an announcement about XYZ. Can't remember when it was. They can press that button. I can't read it. That's too far away. They press that.
It just says all news.
Okay. They press on that.
And
that
you are correct, but an easier way for that resident would be to use this awesome search bar, and they would be able to get into any possible point that we have had a mention of something in the city.
Okay. But there will be a list of announcements in chronological order.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay. Okay.
But again, Chris,
which is it's a pretty common functionality.
Yeah. No, I see that. Okay. Thank you. Let's start with the folks at home. Councilmember Machado, do you have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Chris, for the update, and I'm glad that this is very user-friendly, especially for when a resident wants to pay or wants to do an application for a license, etc. So thank you for the update. Looking forward to see more.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
Thanks, Chris, for the presentation. I'm curious, do we get a lot of traffic in our current website?
I would have to defer to Keith on that one. He manages the back end for approval, so he can give you some better numbers.
Hector, was that a lot of traffic? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, how many people go to the website?
Like users per day, per month, per year. I don't know those numbers off the top of my
I'll have
head.
to check in the back and see. We'll get back to you then.
Thank you.
Councilmember Javed.
But Councilman Sendejas, to your question, that is something that with this, and we want to drive more traffic, then we can come up with a strategy of saying, hey, we're not getting, or we want to have X amount of people to utilize our payment portal, and we measure the traffic. That's something that we can make better decisions on how to advertise better or how to drive different ways, because now we have a more robust tool to send out messaging to get people to go to there. So it will be just more set up for understanding our data on the back end for user traffic and how to better manage getting those engagements going.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Javed.
Yeah, I like this modern look. Great job with the, with the feel of the website. It looks like 2020. I think we caught up with the new year. But one question I had was, is there a functionality where you can add like a chat function in like a department? Maybe like if they go to the treasurer department, if they can't reach anybody by phone, they can maybe do a chat via website, connect with somebody like that.
Yeah, like the chatbot function that can pop up on there. I can get with the vendor. I mean, they don't have a lot of that stuff available here on the mock-up, so I didn't do most of the review on there, but I believe they do have something like that. But is that what you're talking about?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, chatbot. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How may I help you? Something pops up in the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah, but instead of like an AI monitoring it, it could be like a live person behind it and kind of answer questions that, residents don't need to be there present or come into the city hall. They can just quickly ask a question and direct them that way,
Yeah. So I do know that most of them are managed by sophisticated AI algorithms. So they kind of say like, hey, what's your question? And they almost serve as like an FAQ or a troubleshoot function. I'd have to get with them to understand if it's something where somebody can be actively talking, kind of chat function. I would have to get back to you on.
Some of those chat functions require extra staff.
Well, that's what my point was. That's like a two-parter. Does the website have the capability to look into that, but staff does not to chat? So like normally you would create a customer service division, that's what they're doing. They're actively taking calls, they're routing it, they're online responding to chats, online responding to Facebook stuff. But again, those are usually for large organizations that have full-on kind of customer service, or companies that won't have a dedicated customer service division. It's an important thing to have if you want better customer service relationships. We just don't have that capacity right now.
Could be during snow though, or bad weather. When City Hall's closed, you could have somebody at home doing it, right?
Yeah, I guess if you get to that point. So again, like one thing is functionality, one is capacity. So you're right, like if we're shut down, then certainly we can have people monitoring. But that report function is the key one, right? Mm-hmm. So they start clicking a report, then they can submit their request via that system, and it'll go to the relevant department so they can follow up kind of as they're able to.
Do you have a follow-up, Councilmember Javed?
No, I was just, I guess the customer service, has alwace been, Lazo, there's every time we do a budget priority, one of my top priorities is having a centralized individual as a customer service rep. Because, a lot of residents can't get through the phone or can't get a hold of somebody, they don't know where to go. So, it's something to consider later down the road to have some type of easy function where somebody's dedicated answering phone calls, responding to chats and emails, and directing them to where they need to go. But if we can't do it right now, maybe in the near future, I think it would be a great function for the city to have.
I agree with you, Councilman. I think that's a very important function, and really kind of the best operating organizations do have those customer teams to make sure that someone can always hear from someone in the city, get a response in a timely way. I think it's something that we're really lacking right now. So I agree with you. It doesn't have to be a priority as our revenues improve and we're looking to build out our capabilities. That has to be on the top of the list in terms of priorities.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
Hey, Chris, my question is, have you tested this out on mobile?
They do not have a mobile concept, but it scrolls out the same. So if you went to any of the revised customer websites, that's what would be the field view, and it just depends on the size of your cell phone, and that's pretty common for all kind of web providers and how they build out their mobile space. So perfect example would be I think the city of Manassas. We talked about that's kind of the view that you would have. Granted, they have a different kind of design concept layout, but they also have a more busy kind of concept. They have a lot of large images that take up pretty massive parts of the screen. Our goal is to pare that down a little bit. So you would have the kind of, those 3 lines here that would have the drop-down menu for all of these kind of basic directory type functions. You would have the search bar, and then you would have the scrollable action items, and then you would probably see one announcement that you would scroll to, and then you would see just the calendar, probably.
Okay, thanks. And that green bar with the weather on the right, is that for alerts or notices?
Yes.
Okay.
So anything that pops up kind of in the moment. So right now, Keith manages most of that just through social media for immediate alerts, and then whatever he can utilize for evergreen kind of thing. This would just be something kind of like that. So if you go on a bunch of different websites right now, a lot of people have some banner pop downs for COVID alerts, or if they have some sort of perfect thing was it over the weekend, the power line that went down on Manassas Drive, stuff like that would be right there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
No, I like it. It seems a lot. Probably, I've been on our site, the city site, but it
Get
does
closer to your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
But it does look cleaner.
Mhm.
Definitely cleaner than what we have even, I would, I guess a suggestion I might make, I'm not sure where you are with this, Chris, but maybe it's under residents, but we need to have a thing for new residents, especially for people that are from out of state that don't know Virginia that well. And they need to be able to go on and kind of hey, you just moved here. This is your checklist of 6 or 8 or 10 things that you need to do. And I don't know if you already had that plan, but registering your car for personal property and decals, most places don't have that. So that's something very unique to us, and getting a dog license and, figuring out maybe having a school link. Obviously it's the city page, but having a school link because, hey, I have kids. I don't know what schools they go to. Maybe just, and I'm not sure all what you would need on there, hey, getting water and sewer service. And so you might have a list, maybe a checklist with links within it. I don't know if you can do that or not.
When you do the, I'm sorry. Did you have anything? I cut out right there at the last part of them, Councilman.
Yeah, that's okay. It was just basically the concept, I guess if it's under resident, or maybe you have a tab for new resident at the top so that it's a go-to place for new people that can find out all the things they need to do, especially if they're new to Manassas Park, or especially if they're new for Virginia, that they would have kind of a one-stop where they could kind of hey, I've done the 10 things I need to do as a new resident kind of thing.
Yeah, something we
So
can,
one thing that you can do, so when you hover the mouse over the top, the mega menu, that's what they call this kind of drop down right here.
Okay.
The mega menu is just when you hover the mouse over here, it kind of appears below it. You can make an option here on one of these links to have like new residents, and then click into that, and you can have like a new resident like onboarding page with all the different things that you're talking about. So that's something that we can definitely do and build out.
Yeah.
And it would just link to a lot of those different departmental and city functionalities where you have to submit an application for this or submit a payment for that to get registered for something, you name it.
Yeah, we can also thank you, and we can also cross promote the community center because you could have a membership link. So I mean that would be, people might not realize that it's there, especially if they don't live right near it. So they, let's say they live in Bloom's Crossing and they maybe never been to Costello, they wouldn't know it was there. So, but yeah, and maybe even having a checkup for, I'm not sure how to want to say this, but for some of us who have been here a long time, I guess, that maybe we would have kind of like hey, you've been here a while, here's a checkup for current residents. Are you taking advantage of everything we have? Or, have you done your yearly bits, dog license, personal property filing, pay your real estate taxes? Like maybe you have the same thing, but you would have it more geared to people that have been here for a while, and they can kind of do the checklist of, oh yeah, I've kind of done all the things I need to do, or this is what my plan for this year is. So
I think it's a good idea. I think
That's one thing when you're talking about like a marketing strategy, you would kind of think of like new residents versus old residents or current residents. You can definitely have a touch point per X amount of years that you can manage on the back end. So you can have like the full, when you sign up for notifications, we have your information, everything. So we could basically ingest that information, say, we know that this person's been here registered as a citizen for X amount of years and has gotten this many messages, newsletters, so on and so forth. So yeah, that is something that if you do like hey, it's been X amount of time since we sent out hey, have you registered or done these types of services or participated in these types of services kind of email. So that's something that we'll have capacity to do.
And will they be able to personalize it? I guess, like, I need the reminder for dog license, or I need I need a certain reminder. Like, is that possible? Like, I need the reminder for this, and I need the reminder for this, and then
Isn't that what our personal calendars are for?
I'm just saying, but from the city
That's something
perspective,
a little different. That's like what they kind of use, like marketing engines for. It's like a Salesforce type platform. I don't know if that would be for this kind of website background environment to be have that same level of understanding.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chris. That was a beautiful presentation, and I really liked all the aesthetics that you've built into it. I like the fact that you've built in traditional as well as modern, because I'm more of a traditionalist than a lover of moderns, but that's a beautiful blend. So thank you very much. A great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Can everyone back home see the slide that's up?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so I wanted to provide an update on where we're at with CARES Act spending. So when we adopted the CARES Act Round 2 budget, and the motion stated, City Manager will keep you all up to the governing body informed starting in the second meeting in November about where we're at to make sure that we're spending everything. We really try to ramp up because the state's putting a lot of pressure right now and is threatening to pull money back in December if they're concerned about our ability to spend all the money. So unfortunately, so we've had to kind of ramp things up, cut off certain programs, not leave a cushion for certain things, and just commit to spending. So that's why I'm going to give you kind of the update on where we're at. So this is a budget summary slide. On the left column, it lays out the different categories, the 2 revenue categories, the actual CARES Act funding revenue received, and then the FY20 carryover for what we didn't spend in FY20 that we carried over to FY21. And then you have the different programs. We have 9 programs listed for our COVID-19 response. We used to have 8. We added medical equipment with all the EMS purchases that we were doing. So that was the 9th category. Second column, you see the FY20 actuals. So we received the first half of the CARES Act money, the $1.5 million in FY20, and we spent $432,000. Again, we received that money in June, so we had a month to start spending money. So it wasn't a lot of time in FY20. So we carried over that $1,092,000 you see on the bottom there, and then you see that as a revenue in FY21, along with the second round of CARES Act money, the $1.5 million of revenue. So that third column there, the FY21 amount, that's the budgeted amount, right? When we came back a couple of months ago and came up with a basic plan for what we were going to spend it on, we were thinking about doing the Parks and Rec virtual learning, PPE purchase for the public. There was different ideas, the additional support to small business beyond just our grant program, but trying to do like a meals tax and be full rebate as well. So there's a lot of different ideas that were thrown around in the FY21 budget to spend the remaining $2.6 million in CARES Act money. The 2 columns next to that third column, the one that says FY21 actual and FY21 pending, that's actually what's going on. So the actual is what's been spent already in this fiscal year, and then the pending is the majority of those are already, like tonight was really the last night for approval for any additional CARES Act. So this is all the stuff you've already kind of voted on that just hasn't been paid, because we'll receive invoices in December for a lot of these items. So when you if you want to see kind of the total by program area, that's that last column on the right, the FY20 and 21 total amounts by programs for Parks and Rec. It was at $495,000. The majority of that was in FY20 when we turned it essentially into a COVID-19 response task force. We didn't do the virtual learning program. We just never got enough applications. So there wasn't a lot of Parks and Rec spending in FY21. The small business program, we budgeted a lot because we wanted to do more than just the simple grant program that was outlined. But again, when I read one of the Treasury guidelines, I think it was in October, it was, no, that kind of program really wouldn't be supported. It had to be based off the application process versus just, hey, clearly all of our restaurants are struggling. When you look at our meals tax, the numbers have just collapsed. Can we just help all of our restaurants out by giving them essentially a meals tax rebate? Not really clearly allowed in the Treasurer, so unfortunately we weren't able to do that per Treasurer guidelines. Hopefully if Congress can pass additional funding, they'll have less strings and we can do a little bit more to help our businesses, but that's what we were able to do. We received, Chris, are you still on the line?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Do you remember how many businesses have been approved total?
To date would be, it's 40 total. We have 13 and a half, so 27, and the total amount, I'd have to pull up the spreadsheet from it, but I know at the end of it, we get all.
The number of businesses is around 50? Total number of businesses?
40.
40, okay, so 40 businesses. The good thing is it's the majority of the actual shopping centers. If you go around there, the majority of those businesses have applied. We had some outstanding that we're processing this week that we need more information, but we were proactively calling businesses to get all the information that we needed to be able to process that. So that $236,000, that's likely going to be the end amount for spending, minus a little bit of that workforce development program. We don't know if some of that will come back or not, but we're evaluating whether, if it's a nonprofit, we may be able to do a donation so they can keep doing workforce development even going forward. We did that with the food program. That was part of the Parks and Rec program as well, where we funded a local nonprofit to continue the food delivery program as well through the winter, because we know it's going to be a difficult spike coming up here in the winter, so we want to encourage support to those vulnerable members of our community. The rent program from social services and utility support, you can see that we budgeted $200,000. It's looking like we're only going to get to around 34, 35,000-ish, and I'll go over that Next couple slides, employee support, you see how that broke down, 270,000. The biggest expenditures were in the IT. You saw that over the last 4 months, how many different agenda items we were bringing back to you all for approval for remote enhancements, customer service, user-friendly aspects that were a big part of enabling social distancing and teleworking. Those were the biggest expenditure items. Additional staffing support makes up that $94,000 to help us out with everything we're doing. And then the actual PPE and social distancing equipment, $333,000 is where we're likely headed by the end of the year. Cleaning support, $133,000, and then medical equipment, $243,000. So the plan is in place to spend, where you can see we're actually $8,000. We're planning on spending $8,000 more, right? That's a cushion because we may not get to all those, right? We certainly want to spend more than less, and the reason why we want to spend more than less is those two items, PPE and cleaning support. So let's say we end up spending $10,000 more above the budget. Great, we don't have to give anything back, and that $10,000, we're going to essentially reclass some of those cleaning and PPE to seek FEMA reimbursement for that overage over the CARES Act. That way it doesn't come back on us. So that's why we're trying to spend more than the CARES Act money, but in PPE and cleaning, because then it's we don't leave any cushion, we don't leave any dollar unturned, and then we just go ask FEMA for that money. So I just want to point that out. If you see a negative number, don't worry about that, because we're going to then shift that to FEMA.
What's the FEMA reimbursement? Is it 100% or 50%?
75%. The state
75%.
sometimes will pitch in, so I believe they provided 20%, right? The state last
19
time.
usually.
Okay, so it was 9. So 75 percentage points from the state or from the federal, 19 percentage point from the state, and that's 6% from the locality.
Oh, wow.
This time around, I think the state seems to be a little bit strapped for cash. They were saying the full 25% is going to be on us for anything we're asking for going forward. But again, so we don't want to go too far over, but we certainly don't want to go under, because if everything would go over with cleaning, we'll just and PPE will shift over to FEMA.
Right.
It'll cause a little bit of expenditure on our part from the city, but not that much. We'll be able to accomplish most of our goals. So the next few slides just kind of break down a little bit more by line item, and when we're done with the CARES Act, we'll come back and the departments already kind of have like synopsis slides. I'll just have them updated on the different things that we did for programs, like numbers of DSS applicants processed and approved applications for their program, and other examples as well. There's some pretty good metrics on total while Parks and Rec was doing the COVID-19 response, how many people they actually serviced, right? So total amount of service. So we have some pretty good data on that. So we'll try to do kind of a summary in January or February of everything we were able to accomplish in our COVID-19 response and what we were able to use CARES Act money for. But this just breaks it down. You can see again, most of Parks and Rec items were related to the COVID-19 response force from March through July. So you can see a little bit of FY21 expenditures as well. So we reopened the community center in August, and then we have some of the other components of that. The employees that are out here helping with social distancing, that's part of the Parks and Rec team as well. So we're utilizing CARES Act money for that. And then since the MAP clinic is at the Costello Park, we just put that line item there for the improvements that Chief Evans was working on, to give them that, since they're doing all their service outdoors, to give them some outdoor roof cover and screening and some siding, so now they can actually install a heating system there too, because we want to keep doing outdoor, and it's getting cold now. So we want to help them continue to be able to do that, especially when it comes to vaccine implementation here over the next few months as well. Small business support, we already talked about that. We were very constrained in terms of what we can do. You can see the workforce development has supported people, so we've already spent $11,000 for workforce development, and they're still trying to ramp that up as well and do some additional support for that.
Is that through the regional one we approved?
Yeah, that was through the Career Works that Chris presented a couple months ago. Okay. Programs 3 and 4, so Randy's program, again, I'm leaving a little bit of cushion for them for December, but that's like the type of thing there, that 12,000 that the state sees that, and they want to try to eat it up. And there's other jurisdictions trying to get the state to pull out money from those who haven't finished spending it and give it to them. Yeah. Some of them have already spent it. So I'm trying not to leave that much cushion, but this is a program that's really important that I wanted to leave something in case someone's applying for this in December, to leave them something there. We'll review again mid-December, see kind of the application volume. Is there any likelihood of spending, and we may have to pull the trigger on kind of mid-December shipping that remaining amount to PPE and cleaning or other technology stuff as well.
I guess it concerns me. I mean, maybe I'm just way off base that we've only spent, and it's not. I don't want to say it's our fault. That's not what I'm saying. I guess I'm just concerned. $17,000 that we spent on rent and mortgage. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot of people hurting. Like unless there are more people working, and I just don't know. It just seems like that doesn't represent that many people.
It's a little confusing too, because like we reached out to like the apartment, management companies. And they've been trying to promote this as well because they know who's behind, and they try to refer them also to DSS. So it is a little.
So these people are getting. I mean, are the management companies at the apartment complex? They're directly reaching out and saying, "Hey, you owe rent money. You need to go to this program because."
We reached out to them, like gave them contact. Hey, there's this program in Manassas that the city's doing that can help you out.
And they're not taking advantage of it?
People will apply, they don't follow up with all the necessary information that we need to legally be able to distribute funds. This was the case for the business grants as well.
Right.
Chris and I had to cold call every business bank multiple times trying to get all the data that's needed so that when the federal auditors show up, we can have all the necessary documentation. That was it too with Randy, even with Jay, with his program for child care, when there was, they got a wave of applications and he was trying to follow up for additional information to kind of meet all the guidelines, and we just weren't getting the responses, unfortunately.
And just, I guess my big concern is the eviction thing ends, and then all of a sudden there are all these families that are facing eviction, and we had money and they didn't take advantage of it, and we ended up having to give back basically, and then they're out, literally in the cold because they're now being evicted. And we have no access to money to help them.
I think it's an ongoing dialogue we'll need to have kind of probably with our congressional representatives so they understand when they start talking about the next round of federal money. Luckily, we've done a lot with technology, so if we get additional money, and hopefully it doesn't have those same strings, so we can hold on to this and we don't feel like we have to start pulling from different programs.
Right.
We have like a time limit, so hopefully we have a little bit more flexibility with these kinds of programs to once the eviction stuff goes away, to have that extra money to help. But we had to spend this money by December 31st.
No. Absolutely. I'm not.
It's trying to be even more aggressive, telling us to be done by the end of November.
Right.
It's like, I thought we had a little bit more time here, so it's a lot of pressure on us to kind of spend the money, and that's unfortunately why the timeline of December 31st was chosen, when that's the middle of the start of the winter, when everyone was saying the pandemic's going to be really bad in the winter, yet they cut off the money for us on December 31st.
Right. No, and I just want that was not a criticism of your efforts. It was just that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there aren't that many people. Maybe people rebounded, went back to work, and it's okay. But I just wonder, thinking
that's why they didn't complete the papawork.
It could be.
Maybe
numbers have been getting a lot better.
Maybe I'm too sensitive to it, but I just wonder, because when you see the stories nationwide, you've got large groups of people who got behind on their rent months and months ago, never caught up, or they're paying their rent plus a premium because they have to pay back the other months that they missed. I just don't want to see a lot of homelessness or.
Oh, none of us do.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But I'm just concerned that we're going to be in a spot where we did have money and we won't be able to help them.
Yeah, I was hoping someone was going to pass at the federal level to give us more flexibility to hold on to this money. That never happened. So we had to spend it, unfortunately.
And I understand that, absolutely.
For the employee supports, the big ones, the hazard pay, and the next slide will go over kind of how we break that down, but we're going to do a round two of hazard pay for about $122,000. For that one, we've been doing paid sick and medical leave for those who have tested positive or who've in quarantine because of exposure. So that's another area where we're leaving a cushion as well. I should have highlighted that one as well. That's where we're kind of leaving a cushion because we suspect in December because we still see kind of little trickles here and there. We suspect in December we may see some more impact again. But that's another mid-December thing. We'll look at it and see if we can shift it. Again, all these things, when we say we're going to shift it, probably the EOC agenda item from earlier tonight, we'll try to get a little bit more of that stuff funded from some of these items, unless the state takes the money away from us in early December, which I hope doesn't happen. And then the child care support program, that's mainly been for our police officers who've been taking advantage of that program with all the kind of the remote learning requirements and all that, and the fact they have to be here working, so they didn't take advantage of that program. So we left a cushion based off of the current trends, but we're cutting it off on November 30th for that program. So we've already informed everyone who's participating that November's the last month, unfortunately, that we can provide that child care support, and that's roughly the estimate of what we'll spend in November, that $4,000. And then fire really got hit with a lot of overtime requirements due to their employee who had extra complications with COVID-19. So they had a lot of more overtime that we utilized CARES Act money for. And that's still an ongoing thing because they're still not ready to return to duty because of complications. All right, so the hazard pay stipend round 2, as a reminder, and I mentioned this earlier, it's only for a select few departments of police, fire, DSS are kind of locked in as in emergency management, or those that are labeled as allowed, and then any organization that became dedicated to COVID-19 response, like our Parks and Rec. In the budget amendment, which I'll bring to you in early December, we have calculated something like this for all other employees to see kind of to be equitable and say what that would look like for a bonus or for the hazard pay stipend for them. So I'll bring that back to you all as an option for the budget amendment to cover the other employees who didn't qualify. We did add a tier 0 this time, which is, so tier 1 was of course like the most risk last time, but we added a tier 0 to really cover our fire and EMS who are actually transporting COVID-19 patients. That's now brings in caring for them, that brings an extra level of risk. So that's why we want to add. In other jurisdictions, we're doing something similar to kind of take care of their fire and EMS employees who are actually transporting COVID-19 patients. So we did add that, and we increased we pretty much doubled the amounts from that first round because of the available CARES Act, and just really try to reward our employees for who've just been great this whole time. There hasn't been a lot of, everyone's concerned, but no one's been showing that. Everyone's been showing up to work and being a public servant. So this is a good program to kind of help them, support them in their efforts. And you can see how we define the tiers. We didn't change any of the tier definitions from the first hazard pay stipend program. We just simply added that tier 0 and then increased the amounts as well. And then in 2 to 3 weeks, when I come back with the budget amendment, I'll show you the same exact table, but for all the remaining employees who weren't eligible for this one. Yeah, any questions on the hazard pay stipend? That one's, we're going to pay that out next Friday, but if there's any changes, any recommended changes, you all want to make sure we have a coming next Friday.
For our folks at home, any questions? Councilmember Machado?
Yes, Laszlo, so is this one-time payment?
Yes, it's a one-time stipend. Yep.
Okay. Councilmember Sendejas?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
I'm just glad we can provide for our employees.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And then if approved in the budget amendment, then we try to do that for the other employees sometime in January or February to make sure that we can cover everything.
Sure.
Okay. Programs 5 and 6, technology, that's the big one. A lot of spending on a lot of the kind of enhanced remote work functionality and user-friendly for our customers as well. So you can see the hardware. It was kind of hard to distinguish what really is hardware versus software. So it's the totals between those two that matter. There's still a lot of invoices that need to be processed for both of those, but that have already been approved. And we're getting those invoices really throughout December, but I think December 15th, I believe, is the last time we get one of the last big invoices as well. So that's pretty much covered. That number is pretty close to final for the technology spending. Just that one little highlighted area, we see clarification from Randy for one thing that we're following on that. But we're trying to get down to really count every penny here to make sure that we're spending the dollars and the amount of time that we've been provided. The additional workforce, the first program that we created, that was the additional help with Randy's department for processing all the new kind of benefit applications from the high unemployment rates, plus the trying to do our best for the rent and utility and mortgage program as well. So that was that line item. They also received some additional overtime funding from the state, and we were allowed to use CARES Act money as a match for that as well. That came down from the state, so that's that $300 that you see there. Treasurer had one employee who was out in FMLA related to COVID-19. So we had to backfill that position. So we lost the position in the backfilling of the temporary, part-time temporary support for Patty. Chris and Don have utilized the services of part-time employees as well for all the different technology things that they're working on. The contract support $0 simply because we're like, even like the agenda item tonight, we're just, Chris and Don have been tracking it under their software and hardware just to make it easier for them to track everything. So the contract support will say 0. In reality, some of that number up there from the hardware and software is really that support to implement those items as well. PD overtime for support with our social distancing efforts here at City Hall to remain open. That's what that expenditure is. Again, in January, we won't have the money to do that anymore. So if we're still open, we're not going to have as much social distancing enforcement capabilities. If the numbers get really bad again, if we may have to go back to appointment only at City Hall and potentially enforce and shut down the community center if it gets to that point. And then at that point, we leverage Parks and Rec employees again to do COVID-19 work and help out with City Hall social distancing. But we're not there yet. Let's hope we don't get back to that point. Program 7 through 9.
I got a question.
Yes.
All right, if you go back to the other slide, I guess, well, it might be a question for Randy, but the DSS temporary support, do we have, I guess, more funding to help them hire more individuals? I guess there's a lot of essential workers that are being overwhelmed, and there's no avenue for them to vent. And I see a lot of jurisdictions having like some type of hotline where they could call and kind of just ask for assistance or kind of just talk to somebody. I mean, they've been put in like a high pressure situation. So, something like that to help DSS to maybe talk to these nurses and first responders that need help. Is that something we could allocate to that department?
Yeah, it's something we've been looking at, especially since we had that tragedy last year that our employees had to deal with from the residents' counseling services. So that was part of the grant portfolio. So I do hope to be able to pursue a grant to actually bring on counseling support services. Through our healthcare program, we do have kind of an employee benefits, like a hotline like you're discussing there. So it's, Valerie reminds everyone of that as well. So that's one component, but you're absolutely right in terms of kind of the overwhelming nature of this and the fact that this money is going to dry up. So we didn't hire anyone additionally. We just expanded those who are part-time employees, gave them more hours to help with all the benefits processing. But unfortunately, our services employees, the number of foster kids has risen pretty dramatically. So they're starting to get overwhelmed with all the caseloads as well. We've been looking at kind of metrics for kind of proper staff to foster kid ratio, and it's not just foster kids; they also help adults who aren't able to take care of themselves as well. So there's a lot on their plate that they have to manage, and certainly the stress level is very high, and they do feel overwhelmed. I mean, we hear that, and that's something that Randy constantly lets me know about as well with our employees, because they are extremely overtasked. So this was helpful to at least provide some additional support to our benefits team in managing all these applications. That's going away once this is over, so those hours will not be regained. So we hear you. It's something we got to do. It's part of the whole pay increase as well. Like you're asking them to do a lot, and so the goal is to try to get pay up, try to get counseling services as much as possible, and also try to make sure we get to proper staff ratios as well, based off of the workload requirements as well. So we're tracking it. Just unfortunately we're limited right now in what we can do, but it is overwhelming for our employees. And we want to make sure we're caring for those residents as best as we can as well. All right.
Right. I mean, not just employees, but also like, residents that might be like a nurse working in a different jurisdiction, working 80 hours a week, pandemic behind on top of their mind. So something where they could reach out to social services and call a hotline or something if they're feeling stressed out or depressed or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know they got a lot on their plate, but yeah, I mean, we gotta do what we can.
Yeah, for mental health services, that's where the Community Services Board at the county level, that's what they're designed to do, whether they're properly staffed to really take that function for the entire Prince William region. I can't really speak to that. We kind of have like a contract management relationship, but they're not kind of our department, so I don't get the full insights into kind of what their workload is like, and you know, but that's kind of a resource for our residents. I'm just not sure how robust it is of support for our residents, but that's where we really wanted to kind of do more for our residents. That's the kind of entity we would want to partner with and expand their capabilities to do so, help them establish kind of a satellite presence in our city as well for additional services.
Community Services Board has walk-in every day, or Monday through Thursday, I think. So remember when she presented that anybody could walk in and get a same day appointment for at least for screening.
Okay, program 7 through 9, so PPE, again, this is another one where we go over this one. It's not the end of the world, because we can get 75% of these reimbursed from FEMA, but we're still keeping it tight on that one, but we can see where we're headed still with PPE. The cart barn is pretty much done now. It is done.
Clean up some
Clean up, okay, so Chief has finished that project, and Keith and Chief are gonna head over next week and really organize who's storing what where. So by next week, the departments will be able to start storing PPE, cleaning, and then other logistical requirements. Also, the library can start storing some of their equipment overall as well, and in that facility as well. So that was a good investment for the cart barn, and so that project is wrapping up. CPS information, just really our social services team spent a little bit of money on flyers, another way to communicate to residents, especially with kids being home and not at school, just the number of reports, trying to discover abused children, right? So it just made that job a lot easier, but more difficult. So they've been more proactive in trying to raise awareness in the community, and that's what that was. And then the city, with all of its social distancing communication costs that we've incurred, that was mainly through our different messaging boards as well. Cleaning support, there's two components to that, just all the supplies that we already bought and that we're still going to be buying, and trying to buy bulk items to make sure that we can get through the winter with necessary kind of cleaning. Surge that will be needed, and then the staff surge, that's really the outsourced contract that we utilize from September through December. That will end on December 31st, unfortunately. That was extra cleaning to all of our facilities during this time. You can see we only spent roughly $17,000 on that from that period to get that extra enhanced cleaning. Hopefully the HVAC system will at least help out with the fire department in terms of constant kind of virus killing. For medical equipment, that was the EMS stuff that Chief Soper and Robbie briefed you all on a few weeks ago. They purchased most of it already and paid for most of it already. They still have a couple items that are outstanding from there as well. But that is all I have to report. So that's kind of the game plan, the pending columns. And I posted this on the website for transparency purposes, and y'all emailed it to you all as well. So please reference that and let me know if you have any questions or concerns for the spending. But we're going to get there in terms of spending money.
Okay. Well, that was very complete. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. And like Laszlo said, email any specific questions that you might have.
If you're speaking with our congressional representatives, let them know this is a lot of staff
Yeah.
track all this stuff.
Yeah, we need flexibility.
We need flexibility.
Right.
To give us more money.
Yeah,
This
we
is
sure do.
A large administrative burden to kind of follow all the rules and track everything. It was an added burden, and we were meeting all day, all afternoon.
Yeah.
Just trying to get fidelity on everything. So
Okay.
hopefully get more flexibility next time.
Yeah. Anything else for manager's report? Okay. We have no closed meetings, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thanks, folks.
If you say no, you can stay on the good